First of all, let me welcome you all to the poultry workshop that is being put on with the, specifically with MUD, Missoula Urban Demonstration, Western Montana Fairgrounds, and Blue Mountain Flowers. So we're delighted to have all of you here. We're having a few technical glitches, so we're just going to let you know that now, but I think we're going to get everything up and running properly. Did I introduce myself? No, I didn't. I'm Laura Donetto. Kristen Wisenand, wave your hand, Kristen, so there she is. She and I have been co-superintendents here at the fairgrounds for about 15 years together, and we're also the 4-H poultry leaders for Missoula County. So we've been doing this for a couple of years. The one thing I do want to start about is, on your tables, there should be something about how diseases get spread. Can I have one of your boots, please? Give me the worst one. Okay. All right, so well, a lot of people go, but why can't I go and visit my friend's flock? What's the big deal? We have chickens, they have chickens, what's the big deal? Well, okay, so I stole Kristen's boot, and you can see the poop on here. She was out in her coop, probably earlier today, catching chickens. We have some over there. And because of this is a wonderful way to make your flock sick. And you really don't want that. There are some really nasty diseases out there. So, Kristen, you can put your boot back on. So, we're going to just start by talking about why and how these diseases get spread. Now, we're all aware of the highly pathogenic avian influenza. You've all heard of that? Everybody's heard of it. Okay. So that is really more of a seasonal viral issue, but it does massive destruction, not only on the wild birds, but if it gets into some of these big flocks, you can not only decimate your flock, but when it gets reported, as it should, to the state veterinarian, they will come in and have to put down the rest of the flock.
Along with all your neighbors.
They won't put your neighbors down, just their birds. They'll put your neighbors down? No, I was joking. Oh, okay.
I can't remember what the buffer was, but I know that there's a 1 mile radius, a watch area, and that closer to where the epicenter of the disease is, that they will cull any adjacent flocks as well. So
yeah, but not that
you don't want your neighbors to hate you for the rest of your life.
Yeah. And some of us have been in these situations.
The thing about it, though, is it is a reportable disease, which I've got a slide. If we ever get this working.
We have slides.
We have slides. I have a slide with the information on who you call. But you can also go to the Department of Livestock, Montana Department of Livestock, and that's where they'll have the information. And they'll also have any warnings, or because was it last year or the year before, when because of the avian influenza, they shut down all the bird shows because they didn't want any birds traveling from other places and being in close proximity where they could transmit this disease and then potentially disperse it across the state.
Keep going, because I'm going to grab some of my other info about that, and that's going to pique some
So while we're at it, we might just talk about disease in general.
Oh, yeah.
When you get birds, there are two primary diseases that can affect them if they're not vaccinated or otherwise prepared for them, and those are coccidia and Merrick's disease.
Take a look and pass it on.
Coccidia is a
protozoa.
Protozoa. It's an intestinal parasite It is endemic in every flock, which means that there's sort of a standing rate of infection, but all of the flock has developed a resistance to it, an immunity. And every flock has its own particular strain. So when you bring new birds in, they can potentially catch it. When you order day-old chicks, you can have them vaccinated for coccidia, and you can also have them vaccinated for Marek's, which I'll get to here in a minute. If you get coccidia in your birds, it's a generalized, the birds aren't feeling well, they're hunched up, they're fluffed up, their color's bad, their poop is bad. You can take a poop sample into the vet and they can look at it under the microscope and tell you if you've got coccidia or not. It's really easy to treat. You can get this at Murdoch's. This is called Corid, and I wrote it on the side here. It's 9.5 cc's per gallon. So we use gallon waters because it's really convenient because everything goes in a gallon. And you give them this, you change it every day, feed it to them for a week, and it allows their system to build up the immunity to the local version because it's just constantly cycling through them. If you do not, I had a bird he's like my poster child for this, beautiful Brahma, and he was going to grow up to be a huge, gorgeous show bird, and he got coccidia when he was young. And what it does is it damages their gut so that they have trouble absorbing nutrients. And he starved to death because he could not digest his food. I just watched him get taller and taller and thinner until he finally died. And it was terrible. So I'm a big fan of this stuff. Marek's is the other disease. It is a virus.
Yeah, Marek's is a virus.
It's a virus. You can get your day-old chicks vaccinated against it. Technically, you can do the vaccinations yourself, but the dosages, it comes in, like 1,000 bird bottles kind of thing, and it has to be as soon as they hatch, because otherwise they're exposed to it because it's
airborne
in the environment, if it's there. Marek's, it's a neurological disease. It's really classic. Your bird will have like one wing out and one leg back lying on the ground.
Alive.
It's up to a 50% mortality. If they survive, they are carriers for life. And once you have it, it is endemic on your property, and all of your birds are carriers. So you can't sell your birds to other people because there is no cure for this disease. So that's something that you really need to be aware of. And I don't think that like Murdoch's and Tractor Supply get their chicks vaccinated against anything, but I don't know that for sure. I haven't gone and talked to them yet. Yes?
The food that says it's medicated.
Ooh, that's a good question.
Pardon?
The food that says it's medicated.
Oh, okay.
Is that good enough?
Yes, for the coccidia. That will help with your coccidia. The active ingredient in this and in the feed is something called amprolium. And it's, what does the amprolium do? It's like it's an interrupter.
Sulfa. It's a sulfa drug.
Okay.
And it's like an interrupter, so it basically stops the oospores, which are what the protozoa sloughs off.
It's
their eggs.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't attach then to the lining of the gut.
Yep.
So do you dose them coccidia as preventative?
Okay, let's back up on that one because that's a really good question.
Yes, I will, when I get chicks, I will do this anyway because it's not like an antibiotic where I'm inducing any kind of resistance to a drug.
However, you can't use one and then the other. You can't use the medicated feed and use that. It overdoses.
Okay, yeah. If you're using medicated feed, you don't want to medicate the water. It's like one or the other. because it'll overdose. So, yeah.
And if you have, I know this is
Hang
going to
on, we
be a
got a
lot of
question. We have a question.
information. What?
Sorry, no, it's okay. What was the name of that?
Corid.
You know, can we write on the wall? No.
Big whiteboard would work really well.
Giant whiteboard there. There's a couple of things that I wanted to go back to about what you asked. As Kristen said, you can have your day-old chicks vaccinated for a variety. Let's just say.
Like the coccidia.
Coccidia, thank
If
you.
you have them vaccinated against coccidia, don't medicate them.
Yeah, do not, because it defeats the
So
purpose.
you have 3 ways of heading off the coccidia. You've got the vaccination, you've got the treatment in the water, and you've got the medicated feed. Only use one.
Yeah, yes.
And then the other thing to be aware of with the medicated feed and water is do not let waterfowl ingest any of it because it is toxic to them.
Yeah.
So if you've got ducklings and chicks in the same cage, they can't share this.
So when you say, I don't mean to dominate the questions, but when you say
No, these
vaccinate,
aren't dumb.
like you can just go to a vet and say, vaccinate my
No.
chicks?
No, they won't do it. You have to have
It's
it
too
done.
late. It has to be
Yeah.
as soon as they hatch.
Yeah, it has to be done at the hatchery, or if you're hatching. How many of you have chickens right now? Okay, so we at least 2. Okay, so if you're getting, or if you're hatching your own chicks, you need to take into consideration what kind of diseases they could pick up and how you're going to keep them safe, and that's going to be a whole nother section of what we're going to talk about. We'll answer all your questions.
Yep. If we can
Okay.
just get our slideshow. I spent a week and a half putting this slideshow together.
And now we're having problems, so we apologize. We're actually very, very organized. It's
Under normal circumstances.
under normal circumstances. Yes, Rachel.
So with some of those medicines, like whether it's coccidia or whatever, some of the medicines say don't eat if you have like egg producing
Yes.
chicks, then don't eat their eggs for X amount of days.
Yes. Okay, so we've got a couple of things with that. There's something called, oh boy. Withdrawal time, thank you. Withdrawal time. Different medications, different withdrawal times. Read the label. I cannot say this enough. Read any food label you're giving your birds. Know what you're giving them, because the question about the medicated feed, there are, and I was looking in here, I haven't found it yet, there are labels, big letters, medicated feed. Great, that's what I need. You take it home and you feed it to your birds, and then maybe a week later,
They all get coccidia.
they all get coccidia because the medicated feed did not have corid or amprolium in it.
It had
Well,
antibiotics.
It had antibiotics or vitamins. It may have vitamin B and vitamin this and whatever. That's great, but that's not going to keep your chicks safe. So if you just always read the label so you know what you're feeding your birds.
And again, so that's Impolium or Cora, those are the 2.
Amprolium.
Right.
Amprolium is the active ingredient in the corid.
Yeah.
And this is actually,
here.
this does not have, this is what we call off-label use. The directions on here are not for chickens, this is for cows. But if you go online and you Google it, you'll find the poultry specifications for this, and it'll tell you if there's any withdrawal time. I don't think there's any withdrawal time for this stuff.
And again, that's something you need to check. So if you are giving them any medication, and that includes as they get older and you dust them.
Because they get bugs.
'Cause
Here,
they will-
We can do a demonstration.
Oh yeah, let's do that.
My birds are actually
because
really clean.
what
for some
with
strange reason.
with this
Oh,
one
fuzzy, you're
is what's the active ingredient? Permethrin. permethrin, and I assume, is this the natural or the?
No,
Pyrethrin? No,
well, pyrethrin and permethrin, and I can't remember which one is which.
one is made, the natural one is made out of marigolds. And this one is probably
The
not.
bio-identical,
Yeah.
I think that's what they call it.
But you can always read on these, it will say the withdrawal time. Now with these dusts, there is no withdrawal time to eat the eggs. So if you dusted your birds that morning and you collect eggs that afternoon, those eggs are fine to eat.
And that's all gonna be on the label.
It better darn well be on the label. Let's see.
Laura didn't bring her reading glasses.
No, I found storage and disposal. Yeah, it should be, it better darn well be on here. But you're hearing it from us, and we're saying you always read the label for the withdrawal period, because that goes for any livestock at all. So,
Okay,
okay,
so
take it away.
this is our demonstration bird. How did you get this on you? Where is
What
this?
does she have?
I don't know. She's got like this. Yes. This is a silky. She has a very fancy name that I can't remember what it is. So I call her Fuzzy.
She's blue though, isn't she?
I think so.
Yeah.
But she's really she was a really nice silky when she was young, but she's got a whole lot more feathering now that she does, so she's not as show quality as she was. So when I'm looking at a bird and I'm looking for bugs, there are a couple. They can get mites and they can get lice. They all behave.
Move up closer.
They all behave basically the same way. They're little dark things that run around. And you're fine. And where I'm going to look for them, this is like the epicenter, is on their butt. Okay. You're fine. And of course, I picked the fuzziest one. Hang on. I'm going to get the other bird.
Do you want me to grab that one and you get
Yeah, you
the other
take that
one?
one.
Sure, take this
Because
one.
she's got
Here,
way too
take
much.
this.
She's too
Okay.
fluffy.
She's too fluffy. Oh, please. There's got to be. Okay. So what we're doing, and I am supporting this bird. We are not traumatizing this bird, except for the fact that we're tipping her upside down a bit. Go ahead. It might be easier on the other bantam. So what you want to do if you are looking for mites, and I do recommend you do this with your adult birds at least once a month, because honestly, you will find mites. We have northern fowl mites. They're just part of the gift that keeps on giving. So you look, you find the vent. I know she's got a vent in here somewhere. Here, bird. How many times have I done this? And oh, wait a minute. There she is. Okay. So,
Looks like my cat.
well, they feel like. Have you ever felt a selkie?
Yeah, there's a pet store in Spokane that has one as a pet,
Oh yeah.
and it's so funny. That's why I'm like, I want a silky so
They're
bad.
so much fun. Except I am really having. You know. I know. Are you sure this one poops? I can't find. I'm sorry, she brought a defective chicken.
I brought a miracle chicken. She does not poop.
That would be. Yeah, really. So another place to look, since I can't, obviously this is not working, is under the wing, because any place that it's warm. So under the wing, under the thigh, right in here where it's nice and warm, the vent is, and the back of the neck, they can get mites. Hey, does anybody need extra paper to make notes? I mean, we just kind of didn't even ask. Everybody okay? Okay. So we're going to look here. Now we've got chicken dandruff. But you're going to look on the skin back here, and if you see something moving, yeah, that's, and under the wing, same thing. You want to look at the skin. And if you see scabbiness, I'm going to move on down. If you see scabbiness or any kind of, okay, well this is very normal for, she just doesn't always have all the feathers right there. So if you saw something moving on the skin, it's time to treat. And then you treat one bird, you treat them all. Okay. Oh, you got that? Did you get to? Okay. So you would look on the skin. This was not the easiest bird to try to. Okay, so there's the skin. There's some skin. So you would look, and you would look to see if you saw anything moving on it. Those would be mites. So under the wing, back of the neck, obviously the vent, under the thigh, any of those warm spots. That's where they're gonna be hiding, and they'll get to all of your birds. Does anybody want to pet the bird? Yes. I knew that was. Shall I just? Okay, now, here, this perfect example of biosecurity. Now, I'm going to pass this bird around. When you guys are done, do you want to take any of the debris off of this one back to your flock? So you're going to need to wash your hands, change your clothes before you go into your flock, because otherwise you will be spreading anything from this. So I will happily pass the bird along, but I want you to know that. There we go.
How do you hold it so it doesn't freak out?
Oh, that's really good. Kristen.
Like that.
Like that. Oh, you're the example of what not to do. Got it. Okay. Okay, so let me just show you real quick. Okay, here's what we teach the 4-H kids. Hand down, so you want the legs to go I didn't do that. Okay, that's not what we teach the kids, but okay. So you teach the kids, you put the legs between, put the keel bone of the bird, yeah, do what I say, not what I do. Keel bone of the bird in the palm of your hand. At this point, I have her legs caught gently between my fingers, and her weight is resting on the palm of my hand. Now, I can hold her, I can drag her around. If she starts to flap, I can hold her. Yeah, it's okay. You don't have to flap now. So now you get to practice, and then what you learn, you pass on. Okay. I still can't believe I did that. Okay, so we've been talking about biosecurity, so this has really been good to pass this bird around and to be able to discuss it. What questions do you have so far?
The mites, is it almost guaranteed that they'll have them all the time? Is it like an ongoing thing?
Yeah. I hate to make it sound so, but it is. I mean, there's times when maybe they're not as bad, but winter time, they're going to get on the birds because the birds are going to be warmer, and they're in a coop that may or may not be heated, but they're still going to be on the birds. So you want to dust or spray or whatever you can that is safe for your bird.
And then
Go ahead.
you need to dust, you need to do them twice, because you have to get the eggs that are left behind are not affected by your initial dusting for the live bugs. So you have to get the eggs after they hatch before they lay more eggs. So you do them like 10 days apart. Or if you're bad at keeping track of time like I am, I'll dust them 3 times, and I just do them every weekend for 3 weeks.
That's the dust you just showed?
Yeah.
I feel like I've heard that some folks will put like the diatomaceous earth like in their coop.
Yeah.
Is that something that you would recommend?
Okay.
Like a little bit of it, or is there?
Well, do you want me to go ahead? Diatomaceous earth. Does everybody know what diatomaceous earth is? Okay. It's the diatoms, or the little, what kind of critters were they?
They're diatoms.
Okay, they're diatoms. They're little tiny
Ocean creatures that have pokey shells.
And what happens is there's places where they just die, and there's just lots of it. Now, what this does, it is not a curative, okay? So if you already have mites, don't think the diatomaceous earth is going to take care of it all, because it's not. It's more of a preventative. So they do a couple of things with the diatomaceous earth. First thing is they will eat it, and if they eat it, the diatoms, which as Kristen identified have little pokey shells, they go down into the gut and they will basically impale the oospores, and they can help to kill some of those and pass those on if the bird has coccidia. Now,
For dusting,
oh yeah,
for mites.
the dusting for
external
mites,
pressure.
I don't know, I got sidetracked on that one. No kidding. The dusting for mites is, okay, I just forgot where I was going
Okay.
with that one.
When you're
take
dusting
it
for
on.
mites, because they're so angular, what it does is it scratches the exoskeletons of the lice and the mites, and they desiccate fairly readily after that. But it's management, and even spraying or the dust. There's also sprays you can get. Is management, because the bugs just come back. The wild birds, the sparrows, everything brings them in. So you're going to be managing them for the life of your flock.
So the thing with the mites, though, I finally remembered, is that when they use the diatomaceous earth as part of their dust bath, the diatoms will also puncture the mites, hopefully, or the eggs.
It's just the bugs.
Just the bugs.
It just scratches their exoskeletons enough that they dry out.
Right. So it is, again, it's still a preventative. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's just,
These are all variations on management techniques for the external parasites. There's only so much you can do. You keep them comfy.
The diatomaceous earth is like just an extra fun dust bath for them.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
dusting for mites specifically, you would use the products, something like that.
yes, something like
If you
that.
can find the whatever comes from the
The marigold.
marigolds,
Yeah.
that's preferable. Of course, than the chemical equivalent, but it's really hard to find anymore. And a lot of the bugs are becoming resistant to these.
Yeah, and that will
Is
happen.
another issue. It's the same thing as
Resistance
resistance
to what?
to antibiotics.
Yeah.
Oh, my brain. Yeah. So there's that. Okay, so we have handouts for the first part of the presentation.
Oh, did those come in? Oh,
Yes.
great. Oh,
So
super.
let me
Okay.
see. I'm gonna put-
Okay. And
She's trying to lay an egg, so she'd be very happy to go back in there.
oh, okay. So why don't we go back? We started
bring it
this
up.
kind of killing time to see if we could get this running, and obviously we're not going to now. What
If you could think of something else to talk about for just
Oh,
a minute
yeah.
while I
Okay,
do battle
so
with this, because I don't have a printout. I need to see it.
First of all, let me ask: are there any questions at this time? Okay. Okay. You can ask questions anytime, so don't worry. This is you're done. No. Yes.
What's kind of the instance rate of stuff like this? Because obviously we can hear about worst case scenario,
Yeah.
but like how realistically are we expecting?
Okay, here's the realistic part. Yes, they will get mites. That's one. Number two is, yes, the chances of them developing coccidia are very high. So you really, and that's, you want to treat your chicks. So those are the two main ones that you very likely could see. Now, Merrick's, ILT, which is infectious laryngeal tracheitis, and there's a few others, Merrick's that we talked about. Those, although they're common, you might not see those in your flock, especially if you do a good job of biosecurity. Does that?
Yeah, no, that's super helpful. Thank you.
Okay. So let's.
Okay, I got it.
Oh, we got
it on
it?
my phone.
What? Are you kidding me? Okay, let me take this off. Want me to take this off?
No, it's
Oh,
not,
you
not
got-
on there. It's on my phone.
Oh, that-
And they've got
oh.
handouts.
Okay.
So we're gonna jury. We're
Do
just
we
gonna.
have an extra? I mean, I can open mine on my phone.
They've got
that's
Tenzin printed out copies
Yeah, I need a
of the
copy
first
of
one, and then we need to let and
you.
and then
You
there's
rock. Thank you.
There's a second part to this that I just emailed Tenzin, and I don't know if she got that are not.
So are we doing the eggs now, or let's go back to the chicks and start? Do we
That's
want-
what we're,
Well, this one is
the
hatching
other
eggs.
one is the one that's got, this is just about hatching.
Oh, okay,
Okay, so I thought we'd maybe begin at the beginning,
okay.
okay?
We're going to start at the real beginning.
Back to the coccidiosis. What are the signs, and if you get the fix, then what do you do?
The coccidiosis, if you think they've got coccidiosis, they're just basically, they look like they're miserable. Oftentimes they'll have runny, bloody poop, but sometimes it looks bloody and they've just had beets or something. You know. But you can take a stool sample to the vet. Shoney Card is the avian vet around here.
Yeah, and write that
she's-
name down, and I'll get you her phone number
Yeah,
too.
and
Just-
she's at Animal Blessings
yes.
down by the Humane Society.
Can you say her name again, sorry?
Shoney, S-H-O-N-I, Card, C-A-R-D. And as to my best of my knowledge, she's the only avian veterinarian within commuting distance.
Yeah, that I know, that we know of.
Yeah. But she'll take a look at it and tell you if you've got coccidia or not. You can go ahead and treat them for it regardless of what she finds, because I would definitely recommend, because you want to minimize the damage that the coccidia can do. So if you suspect coccidia, just immediately start treating for it, and they'll be happier.
Yeah, yeah. Don't wait, because if they're chicks,
The
they'll be
Ampolla.
dead by the next day.
One of the 3 varieties, we can't do the vaccination anymore,
So we
but
need to
either the
find you one.
chorid or the feed, or the medicated feed.
They are the best birds. Okay, Animal Blessings phone number, 721-1200. Everybody get it? 721-1200. And honestly, a lot of people that have called Kristen and I who are calling just to get information or need assistance with something, we will oftentimes send them there and just say call, and oftentimes she will be able to answer it over the phone, so you don't necessarily have to bring your bird in. Not saying that you shouldn't, but that's an option. Okay.
Okay. So if we're going to begin at the beginning, since we got all discombobulated, is anyone here going to try and hatch eggs? Okay, then this is all hypothetical. But it's still good stuff to know, because you never know when you're going to get things. I wound up hatching a bunch of guineas because I found my 13 guineas had laid a pile of 40-some eggs. When they hatch them out themselves, the babies all die, and I hated watching that. So I stole a bunch of the eggs and I hatched them. If you're ever going to hatch eggs, you can get just these basic, I'll show you the outside of it.
Can I help?
Yeah, here.
Here,
You be
take
Vanna.
this.
You be Vanna. There.
Okay. Okay, and the
So-
thermometer, I'll grab that.
Okay. This is a forced air incubator. It's got 2 things. They're really simple, and these are just styrofoam. It's got a thermostat with a heater attached, and it's got a fan. The fan isn't like a huge fan. It keeps the air circulating, so the heat isn't all stuck
There's
at the top.
fan and the thermostat, the part of the unit.
And this is ancient. I actually got it from Laura,
Oh, that's right, thermostat. Yes, it is ancient.
but it works great.
Yeah, so do I, and I'm ancient.
Yep.
Okay, so there's the fan.
And then
there's the heating unit.
The
on
bottom
this.
part of the incubator, I have an egg turner because these make life a lot
fan.
easier.
And the temperature.
And when you're watching it, you can't see it turn the eggs because it
Very
only
simple,
goes like
really
4
simple.
times a day. So it's very, very slow.
Like literally it flips them over.
No, it doesn't. It'll just rock them back and forth like this. And it works great. And then it's just got a piece of hardware cloth and a bunch of channels underneath that you keep water in. There's 2 sets of channels because you need different humidities at different points in the hatching process or in the incubation process. So you fill up one for most of the time, and then when you get into the last week, you will fill up the other one as well. And it's hard to see. That's the one drawback to these, is trying to keep track of where the water is just a giant pain.
And I think all of that information is in this handout we gave you.
Yeah, it should be.
Right.
So they're excellent. I've never not had a good hatch with these.
And actually, I used it back when I was still heavily breeding my birds and doing a lot of hatching. It is a very simple but very effective. It does exactly what it should do. But we always recommend use a thermometer. No,
Yep.
that does not mean stick it in the egg.
I use multiple thermometers.
Don't
Most
stick it
of
in
the
the
newer
egg.
ones, I saw one at Tractor Supply that's very similar to this by a different company. This is Little Giant, and I can't remember what the Tractor Supply
do
one
that.
was.
No.
And it was about $170. And the one nice improvement that I saw is it had a different way of filling those water reservoirs from the outside, which was like, oh, this is great.
So much easier.
And it had a thermometer of the digital display on it. But I'll use multiple thermometers. Like for this, I've got this meat thermometer. I got one of these because there are all kinds of little holes for ventilation in the top, and I just drop it down one of those. I use one of my kitchen thermometers with a cable and a probe, and I'll lay the probe on top of the eggs. So I can see what the temperatures are in the different sort of strata of the incubator, so I know that the eggs are the right temperature, because that's the important part.
How is it saying when the chickens, like when they incubate it naturally, you say the eggs die, or it doesn't work?
Oh no, I've had great luck. If you can get a hen to sit on eggs for the whole time, that's the key.
Oh, that's the problem.
That's
What will happen is 3 days before they hatch, they'll leave.
yeah.
or
They'll get
something.
bored and leave. Yeah.
But if you
Yeah.
can get them to
I know.
hatch, but
Yeah.
if you can get them to hatch the eggs, that is absolutely ideal.
Because they've got
But if you
everything.
are going to have them hatch, you have to separate the setting hen until she hatches and until the chicks are big enough to leave her, and then you can put her back in with the flock. Don't put the little guys back in because they'll get et.
Seriously, it happens.
Yeah, and it's not pretty. I used to breed Ceramas, which are like the tiniest chickens they make.
In the standards that you've got there, there should be pictures of Ceramas in there, and they're only about that tall?
Yeah.
About that tall. They're meant as tabletop birds. They were seriously. They were.
They're the chihuahuas of the chicken world.
Bingo. There we go. There we go. Yeah. So if you got a chihuahua, you definitely have to have a Cerama to go with it.
Yep. So what you're looking at is you basically don't do anything with if you're using the incubator, don't do anything with your eggs. Try not to open it other than to put water in until the 18th day. And on the 18th day, you have to stop the egg turner. Then you'd leave them. And they should hatch on the 21st day, but you can wait until the 23rd day because it can take them a while, and you don't want to open it. You can leave the ones that have hatched in there because they've got about 3 days of reserves in yolk, which is why they can ship day-old chicks, because they've got a couple of days of groceries to work on. Ooh, what happened? What else do I have? What else do I have here?
So what is the advantage of hatching your own eggs with just buying already hatched chicks?
Well, if you want to hatch your own birds, and you have chickens that you want to propagate, you can do that. Because if you've just got laying birds and you've got a rooster who's one of the laying breeds, the crosses are going to be probably just as good layers as any of the hens that you've got already. And that way you can save some money.
And have the joy
Yeah.
of being there for the miracle
Being
of
the
life.
chicken mama, yes. It's fun, and it's fun. It's fun. And if you have little kids, it's
Oh,
just
yeah.
magic.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
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 Yeah. And if you're a breeder, if you're one of the crazy chicken people, if you've seen that show, they'll hatch their own eggs because they're breeding, they're line breeding, or they're back breeding, or
Yeah,
they're doing very specific things genetically
for.
with their population. Oh, it keeps doing this to me. Yes,
Did you find it?
I got that. Okay, that's all I had for that.
Okay, I'm ready for the next one.
I am too. Hang on, let me get out of this one.
No, this is, are they developing? Is that what we're going to next? Are we doing, are they developing? I'm so excited.
What? Oh, we're done. We've hatched all the eggs. The chickens are gone. They're done.
What? No, the next page says, are they developing? See? Mm-hmm. That's what, so I'm ready. Look. She doesn't take me seriously. Okay.
Are you gonna candle the egg?
I get to do this, but
I was just doing an overview because no one's hatching eggs.
Okay, we'll do an overview, but it's really cool to see stuff candled, so I was
Okay,
going to show you how to
okay.
do it anyway, because it humors me.
Okay, if you go to, where were we, on the 6th?
We don't have page numbers on these.
Oh, okay.
Maybe just like the
So, well, you see, there'll be sheets with you see, there's eggs. with glowing eggs is what you'll see.
Okay. Okay.
Yep. So this is like day 7.
Okay, so the one that
And
says,
then-
are they developing?
Yeah, okay.
Now, has everybody got to that page? All right.
Okay.
Candling has been done for probably
Bazillion years.
a bazillion years, yes. And the reason we candle is because we want to see if there actually is development going on in the egg. So I just grabbed this that Kristen had brought in. And if I was seriously going to candle this egg, I would go into one of those, into the bathroom and shut the door and stand there in the dark. Because what I'm going to do is put the flashlight. Now, I usually use one of those little flashlights, but all I got is my phone right now. And in a dark room, this will actually illuminate everything in the egg. You will see if there are veins, and you can watch as the embryo develops. And you can also see if there is no development in there. And that way you will know those are the eggs to get rid of. You do not want to keep those incubating in there
because there's nothing like a rotten egg. Nothing like a rotten egg.
Has anybody
Skunks
smelled a
do not
rotten
hold
egg?
a candle to a rotten egg.
Yeah, anybody smelled a rotten egg? Know what a rotten egg you have? Yeah, it's lovely. It's sulfur, it's like the worst porta potty you ever stood in.
And they explode because what happens is the hydrogen sulfide gases build up inside the egg. So it's really exciting. But you should,
Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
Quick question. So, when removing, how long, can you remove an egg from the incubator before it's, problematic?
How many times can you remove
I
it?
guess how long? Because, if you're checking it in a dark room away from the incubator,
Oh,
is that gonna...
you know,
It'll be fine for a
it'll
minute
be
or two.
fine. You know, I've done stuff where I take a bunch of eggs, or I'm in with the entire incubator, and it's like open, grab, put back, or have a bunch of them laying around. It's okay. I wouldn't do it for more than maybe 10, 15 minutes max. But, it's a quick thing. Take, look, put back. But good question.
Yeah. So on day 7, you should be able to see, there should be a dark spot in the middle of the egg, and you should see some veining starting. And if you've got a really good flashlight, the heart will already be beating, and you'll be able to see that. If you get what they call a blood ring, that means that there's nothing happening, or it's died. And those are the ones you're going to get rid of. Of course, it's hard to tell. This is always, until you've done it a million times, it's really hard to tell. And you never want, you're always worried you're going to throw away something that's viable. So I will always keep things for a little longer than I
Yeah.
should
Yeah,
because
ditto.
I don't want to be a murderer. And it will show after a while, it'll get to a point where you can see them and you can actually, if you just rock the egg a little bit, they'll move. So your comfort level will improve. And I put a slide in here showing day 3, 6, 8, 10, 15, and 19 of development, just to give you an idea.
This is my copy.
And then the air sac on an egg, you've got them on the ones that you put in the frying pan. And what that is that's the first air that the chicks get when they're hatching. They'll break through that membrane into that air sac before they break the shell. And you can see on this slide, I've got the egg sac, the air sac gets larger over time.
Yeah, there's that development. Yeah, that's
Right.
in there. It's in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then on the next slide is you lock it down on day 18. You fill up all of the water reservoirs and you don't open it again until they're hatching. You don't want to open it, ideally you don't want to open it at all while they're hatching because you want to maintain that humidity.
Yes.
Because what will happen is you can shrink wrap the chicks.
Yeah.
The ones that are hatching, it gets too dry and the membrane inside the egg will stick to them and they can't get out. Oh, dang it, stop that.
I'm actually looking at the one.
The other one? Okay.
Yeah, I'm up to the page that says hatching. Where's everybody else
Yes.
right now? Are
And
we
then
at
we
the
should be on
phase?
hatching. On day
Yay!
21. Day 21 is when chickens hatch.
Usually.
Usually. Don't ask me what everybody else does, like ducks and geese, because I don't remember.
I do, but I won't
Okay,
go there
well,
yet.
if someone asks, we'll go to you.
Okay.
So at day 21, I will probably be impatient, and at that point in time, I will candle whatever eggs have not hatched to see what's going on, instead of waiting a couple more days. Ideally, you don't wait until the 23rd day, and then you take a look at them. And it could take a day or two for them to completely get out of an egg. Sometimes they'll have yolk that isn't absorbed, and it'll be right down by their pooper. And don't worry about it, other than you want to make sure that the other chicks aren't pecking it.
Oh, look, we have light.
Oh man, what a concept. Okay, there.
Thanks, Tenzin.
And then, what else do I have? Okay. Yes, so we've hatched the eggs.
Okay.
And we have cute pictures of baby chicks.
Yep.
And then we get to the hen thing, nature's incubator. If you have a chicken that you cannot get out of the egg box, they're broody. And they'll sit there, they start to lose weight. They lose all the feathers on their chest because they think that they're incubating eggs. And what they'll do is they'll pluck their chest so that they have the skin exposed so that they're making direct contact with the eggs. Those are the hens you want to sit on your eggs. And that's where you can take them, you can plan it ahead of time. You can have a space specifically developed for your hens to sit on the eggs. And to put her and the eggs, however many eggs you want to put on her, in there, and let her do her thing. Because they'll maintain all of the humidity and everything that the chicks need. Someone somewhere did a study, and they figured that a hen will turn an egg 93 times a day. So what we're doing is like the bare minimum. And it still seems to work. Yep. Yeah, and then once the chicks hatch, the chicks can go into a brooder and the hen can go back with the flock after a week or two.
How do you like maintain the hen's health while she's brooding? Because I know that they can like get a little pecky sometimes, but like do you put food and water close to them?
Yeah,
do?
I'll keep them, usually like a big dog crate works really well.
Oh, okay.
for a brooding, you know, a hatching pen. And
move on.
yeah, I'll just put food and water in there with them. If you look, I've got a really good picture at the bottom. My very last slide, I think, yes, has a nice image of the hen with the feed and the water and everything. And that would have been in there the whole time. The little plate, the little green plate's there because for the chicks, because they can't get into the big food.
But you're saying that it's rare for the hen to like do the complete job.
It's sort of one of those Murphy's Law things.
Yeah.
You know, you'll have this hen that has constantly, like, you can't get her out of the laying boxes, you know. And so you're like, fine, we'll give you eggs to sit on. So you give her eggs to sit on, and 3 days before they're due to hatch, she like decides that she's not broody anymore. But if you keep her in a controlled environment, she's less likely to do that.
Okay.
So, okay.
So I think we're ready to move on.
Okay, now I
to-
just have to figure out how to close this thing. Okay, there we go.
Okay. Well, does everybody have a copy of, oh, they don't. Oh, okay.
We have to hand them out.
We realized these were supposed to be the what
My
was on the
PowerPoint
screen, the
presentation.
PowerPoint, but now we're
That's- we have
PowerPoint.
technology has conquered us. We
So,
apologize.
but this is good. We'll get our steps in. So, Chicken 101. Now we kind of went all around it while we were trying to get everything up and running, and now we're just going to go back and start at the other part of the beginning.
Yes.
And so it begins. I'm going to hold the picture up.
Yes, Laura will go around. Vanna will show everybody what's going on. So this is, what do I need? How do I take care of them? Where do I buy chicks? And what
go
kind
over
should I get?
everything on this.
So before you get your chicks, get set up. I'm sure there are a lot of people who go to the store and they're like, oh, these are cute. And they come home with 5 chicks and then they don't have any, they don't know what to do with them. So you need a brooder, which can be a variety of contraptions. I'll use anything from a tote, if I've only got a couple,
Hang on just
up
one second. I'm gonna
to
have her talk
a
about
great
that
big
one,
metal stock
and then I'll
tank
go to that one.
for when I do 50 meat birds.
Because I confused myself.
You need heat. You need fresh water, you need baby feed, and you need bedding. So for a brooder, a chick needs about 6 square inches apiece when you first get them. I will generally start them in the container they will grow up in until they no longer need heat. That's my stock tank.
Okay, I see what she's doing.
The first day or two, I'll keep the chicks on paper towels for traction, and then I'll change to pine shavings. Never use cedar shavings. I know that it actually would be really good for the mites and the lice and stuff like that, but the terpenes that it gives off are the chicken's lungs are very sensitive to that. So that's a no-no.
That's what we're working on now.
You're running behind, Laura.
Okay. And again, going back to that
So-
medicated feed.
We'll get there. Don't
Oh,
worry.
okay.
We're going to get there.
Okay, got it.
So next we have heat lamps versus infrared heaters.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, we
heat
already-
lamps. Hang on. Okay. I can do some of this.
Okay.
I'm going to start with heat lamps.
Okay.
I got it.
Okay.
You run the slide, I run the stuff.
Okay.
I'll run the props. Heat lamps, I use just a standard heat lamp like this. It doesn't have a cage or anything on it because those are really just for show. When I do my stock tanks, I have screens that go over the top, built on, like I'll use fencing, like 2x4 inch welded wire fencing, sort of standard farm issue, and just fold the corners over so it stays put, and I'll clamp this onto the wire. They make those clip-on ones, the clampy ones. You tie those down. Don't just rely on that clamp because you will burn things up. The other thing is you want to make sure this is not close to their water because they fling water droplets around, and if a water droplet hits the bulb, it'll explode. And then they eat the broken glass and they die. I had turkey poults. If you buy turkeys, always buy them in multiples because they die. I had turkeys that pecked the lamp and broke it, and then they ate the glass. I couldn't tell, they either ate the glass and died, or they tried to eat the element and it was still alive and they electrocuted themselves. So I try and keep this away from the water. Well, I like the long stock tanks because I can keep the feed in the water at one end and the heat at the other, and that way they're always comfortable. And if it's cold out, because I've had them on my deck, I put canvas, old manties from horse packing over the ends where it doesn't have the heat. And that way they can get into the heat and they can get away from the heat, and it can keep it far enough up that they can't do anything to the light bulb, which is nice.
Yeah, I was thinking like how high often should it be? Like, is it too high? If it's like,
Well, you can tell by how your birds, well, this will be, so I have the stock tanks, you know, this high, I guess. And so it'll be hanging from there. So it'll be that far off of the, whatever my bedding is.
Or higher, just because
And
of
you can
depending on
lift
the
it up,
bedding.
you know, once they get to the point where they're more comfortable, they don't need as much heat, I put it on top of the wire. I like the heat lamps better if you're starting more than a handful of chicks. Obviously, they're fire hazards, so anchor is the big thing. And just a public service announcement, adult birds do not need extra heat in the wintertime. That's why they're covered with feathers. You know, as long as they're in a decent enclosure that has ventilation.
Yeah.
Not like wind tunnels, but just
Yeah.
ventilation,
And-
so that the water air is circulating. They will be just fine.
Unless you want to knit them little jackets and stuff. We've seen some
You know,
interesting
I mean,
things.
you can give them heat if you want to, but they really don't need it.
in this winter, if they're in their little home,
Mm-hmm.
they just don't even need heat.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna preface that by throwing something out. I know I always do. If in some circumstances, some of the cocks, cockerels, or roosters, as most of you are going to call them, have a big single comb. If they can keep themselves warm, but they may lose points off their comb if it's cold enough. Now we're talking about, you know, probably being in a draft, it being sub-zero, and they're just not.
Yeah. And the thing is, there's a limited amount of things you can do about that. You can maintain some heat, you can Vaseline their combs and their wattles.
Yeah.
Or you can let nature take its course, and they'll frost the tips off the combs, and then they've got nubby combs, and they've got little wattles.
But they can lose toes too. We've had birds, not we, but I mean, I have had people.
I've never had birds lose toes.
Okay.
As long as you make sure that their roosts are made of wood
Yes.
and not metal,
Yes.
that's huge.
Yes, that is good point. Very good
Yeah.
point.
So then we get to the infrared heaters. And those are panels like this, this one's really disgusting because I've used it. They come with little feet so you can stand them up, and they can be like against the wall. Honestly, these are safe. They're very safe. But if you're
that's
going
one
to
of 'em.
be
Okay. I'm not gonna show 'em, but I
brooding
need
your
to look at 'em
babies
and help some.
outdoors like I do on my back deck, these aren't going to give you enough heat. These are good if you're brooding indoors or in the garage or something. But they're great. I've got a couple of them. And what I do is I set them level. These are the ones you get at Murdoch's, and they're
They're about $40.
50.
Oh, are they now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'll just set them on top of a couple of pieces of like 4x4. So I've got a little runway underneath where everyone can sit. And it works well. Okay. Yeah, it doesn't have the radiant reach of a lamp, and they're good for about a dozen chicks, I figure.
Can I throw one thing out? If you watch your chicks.
We're going to get there.
Oh, we are. Oh, goody. Okay, I won't go any farther.
We've been doing this a while. So then I've got a couple of slides of the equipment of heat lamp and
Do you want me to
another
take those
kind,
around?
yes, if you would.
Oh,
please,
okay.
Barry.
Now I have a use again.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So that's the infrared on that one, and then the other
that
is
one around.
traditional. I'm going to share.
So
Oh.
to see if the chicks are at the right temperature,
Okay. So that's the
and
infrared. and those are
I stole a bunch of
traditional.
these slides from various commercial entities.
I don't think
But
that
you
would
just
be the
watch them
light
and
that's
see
in
how
this
they're
one.
arranging themselves
So, yeah,
around
the
the
red
heat,
light, the-
and they'll
the
tell you
Heat bulb, but we need to
if
talk
they're,
about.
yeah,
I think she will the
if they're
security
cooking or
of that
freezing.
one, 'cause they can cause a fire, but they work.
We can do
so
that.
That's the
We can
infrared, and then
Okay,
these are
yes,
traditional.
Tenzin says yes. Everyone has, someone somewhere has all of your information, right? Okay, cool. Yeah, we can send these out to you.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. So you just kind of, there's just this little schematic, and
And I'm going to show you. These are,
and you can tell when
so
your chickens
that's
are.
the infrared, and then these are the traditional ones.
So you can see we've got too hot, everyone's trying to get away from the heat, just right, everyone's just sort of doing their thing. Too cold, they're all completely underneath, and there's a draft, so everyone's over on one side.
This is from like a long time ago, but it's like,
Yeah.
that's what I gave you guys.
See, yeah, once you've seen it, you'll recognize what's going on. So I'm going to Best Buy and I'm buying a new computer right after this, by the way.
These are lovely slides, by the way. We can appreciate what you were going for.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I tried so hard. So, yep, but it's pretty, we got hot, just right, too cold, and a draft. So, they will tell you what they need. Oh, Dad.
Okay, so I know where we're going next.
Okay, now we're going to feed and water.
Woohoo! Okay.
Oh, Laura's favorite part.
All right.
And then put those there. Okay.
Oh, you want to grab your doohickey and I'll
Oh, yeah.
grab. Okay. So I know Kristen's way on top of this, but I'm going to show you a couple of different styles. And these are all ones that I've used over the years. And she's got something real cool that's very
Yeah.
new. Do you want to
And
start?
then this is for if you get a lot of birds, like some years, and I'm not doing it this year, some years I'll do meat birds, and I get them 50 at a time. And that's for things, that's where I use this guy. Walmart, of all places, had this really cool little feeder waterer. And the base is reversible. So right now it's a waterer. And I can turn it over, and it's a feeder. So I always thought these were really slick, and I picked a couple of these up. I don't know if they have them right now, but I recommend these if you're just doing a couple of birds. These are fantastic.
So these are all waterers, and this one especially, if you notice how tiny it is, if you do any bantams or really small chicks that you're starting, this is excellent because bantam chicks can
Will drown.
actually get, they'll get in something like this and drown. They literally can't get out. They'll get waterlogged. This is for adult birds, but this would be great for
Yes.
bantams.
And that'd be really good for the
Here,
day
grab
olds
that.
for the first couple of days.
Yes.
These would be really good.
If you have small birds, but let's say all you have is this size, put larger pebbles in here. So the birds, if they happen to get in the water, can get out and they will not drown. Because let me tell you, there's nothing worse than finding one of your beloved little chicks, belly
And a little
down.
puddly heap, yes.
Not good. not. Very sad, very sad.
This is
So-
1 gallon, okay? So when
Yeah.
we talk about medication, this is a gallon. So this is a really handy dandy
Did you want me
size
to
have.
pass these around? Did you even need to, everybody, you know, yeah, okay, got it. There's a couple other things that we use. This also, this is a little mini chick feeder. This is metal, you can throw this in the dishwasher. This also takes like one of these, I use just canning jars, but you can use, if you've got
A
a
mayonnaise
plastic
jar.
one- Huh?
Mayonnaise jars work
Mayonnaise
really
jars.
well.
One of the benefits of using glass is because it's heavier than plastic and they can't knock it over as easily. I cannot tell you how many times I've gone in and found chicks standing on top of the water, and then something happens, and then the next thing I find it, and it's lying on its side, and all the water's all over the place, and I have to clean up again.
Yep.
So, okay, one other quick, while I've got me live and in
Wait,
person.
okay,
What? Can I do this?
okay.
Okay, goody. Okay, I'm gonna. Recyclable things are wonderful. I love to recycle.
That's a whole different presentation.
This is a whole, but I'm gonna make it real short. I promise. I promise. Okay, old milk carton. Keep the handle on. Cut this off. Zip tie it or just twisty tie it into the cage. And these make wonderful feeders and waters. You can wash them, bleach them, and recycle them. Same thing with this. These are called pop bottle waters. These things, I don't even know if they sell these anymore.
I saw them somewhere
Really?
just the other day, and I was like, oh, I should get some. And then I was like, no,
Oh,
stop.
I've got about 1 million
Yes.
of them. So this is just another way to do water for your birds if you have to keep them in a cage instead of having to go and buy something. Okay, I'm done.
Okay, so
Miracles happen.
all your chicks need a continuous supply of clean water. Anyone who's been in 4-H knows this mantra. Some of them are really stupid about it, and you might have to dip their beaks in if they're not figuring it out when you first get them. And like Laura was talking about, for the bantam breeds, you put marbles or pebbles in so that they can't fall in and drown. Feed your chicks free choice so they can eat as much as they need. You want to start with a starter grower with a protein content of 20 to 24%. Scatter the first feed on like paper towels so there's contrast and they can see things to peck at. You know, like they look like bugs basically in their 3 cells of their brain. And then feed them the chick starter for the first 8 weeks. And after that, you can transition them over to an adult feed. And this is where we're going to get into the medicated versus the unmedicated feed. One more time. 8 weeks. At 8 weeks, you transition them to an adult feed. They may be small enough that they still need a crumble. In general, for my adult birds, I'll use pellets because they don't waste as much. And with what it costs these days, you know.
So 2 quick questions were on the water. One, I guess, how frequently are you refilling them? Like, what is a gallon? Obviously,
You still got to change it every day because they get all kinds of junk in it.
and then the second one is for like wintertime considerations. If it's in their like space, it should be fine. Or how are you keeping it heated in the super cold?
Well, if you're running a brooder setup where you've got the heat lamp and everything, your temperatures are going to be high enough where your feed and water are that you're not going to have any concerns about freezing. Otherwise, there's all kinds of heating contraptions you can get. And yeah, and honestly, for the adult birds, I've never found a heated water anything that was really effective. That wasn't just a giant pain in the butt.
I
good.
tried.
Yes.
I guess I just wanted to like tap into that. Like I have one that looks like a big dog bowl, and it
Yes.
you kind of always just have like extension cords running out to your chicken run. And the pain about that one is that it just like if you're not changing the water or cleaning it out enough, it'll kind of collect algae over time, and so that's another reason you want to change it often. But I feel like that's the most effective.
Yes.
Or just another like heated platter to then put the metal water on.
And I've used those, and I'll tell you what I get. The mice get underneath them.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, a warm spot.
Well, if you wouldn't leave those little rafts around for them to put in the water and never mind. So I'm going to the one thing with the the water, and all of you know this, water starts to get rancid pretty quickly. So especially in the summertime, I mean, in the winter you've got a little bit more give on that, but in the summertime it really needs to get changed frequently. But I was going to say, yes, I do the same thing. I have one of those heated dog bowls, but I put it inside a big plastic feed tub and plug it in when it's so cold that my water's freezing in the coop. So, and that works fabulous. Oh, that was, and is that what you said you did? Did I hear you say that? I know you did that.
I have used that, particularly for small birds when I had bantams and I had them in a separate area. I'd use the little dog bowl, the heated one for them, and that worked really well. Just they're blue, you know, they've got an electrical cable. They're great.
I also am curious, would you guys recommend, I feel like I've read a ton of stuff about like don't put feed or especially water in their coop even when it's so cold, but I mean, what do you guys recommend? I hear pros and cons about.
Well, my question is why wouldn't you?
Well, I guess what I've heard about the water is that it just creates a lot more like moisture in their coop, so it can lead to like respiratory illness. But food would also attract like other mice or rodents. So those are like the negatives,
But they're going to get into it even if it's out. Well, and then as far as the humidity goes, I think that's a non-issue in Montana because our relative humidities are so low anyway that you're just not going to get that problem. Have that problem. That'd be like I'd say a coastal thing, you know.
Good. Water and electrolytes when they're little babies.
Oh yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I didn't
do anything on the electrolytes, but me. Okay, me. I'm going to have to go back and look because it's been a while since I've done that. But there actually are, you can purchase electrolytes specifically to start chicks, and it has, again, nutrients in it that will help their developing systems. Now, again, you want to read the label on that versus what you're feeding them, because if what you're feeding them says medicated, but it's actually, you know, the vitamin B and all that, that also may be in the electrolytes. And in most situations, it probably won't be too much, but you want to be careful on that. But yes, I agree. I think that's a wonderful way to get them started. Just gives them a little bump up.
Yeah. If you're doing meat birds, would definitely recommend doing stuff like that because they grow so fast that giving them as much head start as you can right off the bat is very helpful.
Okay. And can you speak to like how long they need the electrolytes?
First week.
Why don't you look it up? I'll look it up.
Look it up.
Look
Okay.
it up.
While she's doing that, we'll go back to medicated
We'll keep
and
Laura
unmedicated
busy
feeds.
for a while.
We covered most of this. I think I have some labels I want to look at.
You have I've got a
have
whole
an
bunch of feed
Amprolium
stuff I
label.
brought too.
But see, I've got one. Here's the Amprolium
okay.
one. So for the medicated feed, it was you that showed me, yes, you get a gold star because you got the right kind. 90% of the time, it's got antibiotics or something in it because people aren't reading the labels. So on the bottom of those 50-gallon, or 50, actually, of those 50-pound bags of feed, there's a label. And that label has a whole lot of information on it. If you're buying the medicated feed, it will say it's medicated, and the first thing that it will display is the active drug ingredient, which in this case is Amprolium 0.0125%. So this would be medicated feed for chicks. And then it goes on to give you a guaranteed analysis of the important stuff that's in there. So we've got crude protein, minimum of 18%. And what did I say we wanted? 20 to 24, something. So this is bad. And then lysine, methionine, these are all amino acids. Yes, oh gosh, I remembered. And then fat, fiber, calcium, phosphorus, salt, and sodium. Salt and sodium? Okay, whatever. But this is what you look at to see what's in there. And ideally, you want something that's got some of those amino acids and stuff in it because they need it. You know, they're domestic. They're just, they just don't have the constitutions that their ancestors did. But yeah, so you've got, it's medicated. Here's the amprolium at the very top, and then here's everything else that it's got.
Yeah, so this just has 18% as well.
Okay. You can supplement it. What are some supplements that are like a super high protein supplement for the chicks? Because I was saying they recommend
Super high
a 20 to 24% starter for chicks, and these are all
Yeah.
18.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think of what some of they use both plant-based and there is animal-based
So
protein,
medicated.
depending on your preference.
Front and center in the middle.
You can
Active
you
drug
can
ingredient
use
is the
soy as
amprolium
a
and the
protein.
percentage. And then
Some people
everything
do
else.
not like that because of
Protein is
the
really your
phytochemicals
key.
in the
And this
soy.
is
Another one
18%,
is
and I said 20 to 24.
ground peas
normally
have
you'd
a
want something a
lot
little
of
higher.
protein, and you can get ground pea for
Might be on
birds. You may even have to grind it yourself, but you can
And
use
hopefully
that.
those handouts that we've done over the
Who
years
asked the
haven't contradicted
question?
everything.
You
else.
did. Okay.
Okay. Oh, good.
You would have to go to a specialty feed store. So one of the Lakeland Feeds. Anybody familiar with Lakeland Feeds in Hamilton? Okay, they're one of the last local mills that still makes their own feed. I used to have custom-made feed
I'm
when I
so
was
glad when I
showing
found that one.
exhibition birds, and so you could call down there and say, hey, I need, and they would be able to make it up for you. But also about your question about the electrolytes. It says, so how long do chickens need electrolytes in their water? And the answer is, there's no need to give them on a daily basis. It can help their immune system and boost their general health, but it's not necessary. And this is out of the Backyard Chicken website, and I really recommend this. So Backyard Chickens, if you go into Backyard Chickens, you're going to go to their website, and they are a wonderful resource. So when questions come up, you can look a lot of this stuff up yourself, and it's really helpful. But then if you get in kind of a quandary trying to figure it out, that's when you'd want to call Kristen or I, and then we can probably help you with it. And if we can't, we have resources. So
We know people.
we know people. Wasn't that Guido that we had no, never mind.
So anyway, this segues into, this is what could possibly go wrong. Pasty butt and pecking, and I'll start with pecking because that just comes back to protein. If a chick or chicks are pecking each other, it can be an indicator that they're not getting enough protein. So you can try a higher protein starter mix or an amendment, or you can just feed them scrambled eggs.
Believe it or not, it works.
Scrambled eggs.
Scrambled eggs.
This is the thing. The chickens do not connect scrambled eggs with eggs.
Really,
Just
they
take my
don't.
word for it.
They're not that sharp.
Yeah, here, I've got to show everybody my lovely slide that I made. See, this is the slide that you're missing. I'm so disappointed that I couldn't get the technology to work.
Oh, that's clean.
So then the other thing is pasty butt. Chicks,
Here, I'll
almost,
pass it.
you'll
Do you
always
want me to
have
grab
chicks
that? Okay,
that
I'm just going to
have,
pass this around. This is the pasty butt page.
Okay.
So take a look and pass it on. That way it won't terrorize everybody.
that have pasty butt. And it's basically they got a big nugget of poop stuck to their rear end, and it can stop them up.
Yeah, it's
So you
like
have to clean it off. You can
big
do this
plug.
2 different ways. You can be an evil ogre and you can just pull it off, which also takes off the fuzz around their vent. But what it means is that it won't come back. Or you can be nice and you can wash them. You can do what we're doing in the slide here, be politically correct, and give them a nice warm bath and soak it off. And just pay attention. It shouldn't happen too often. I love my slide.
And it usually happens if they get in a draft or if they get really stressed.
It's, yeah, when you first get them, it'll be
Yeah.
like that first week.
Yes, yes, and they'll have little, we call it that, everybody calls it pasty butt.
And it's really common.
Yeah.
So
But it's good to be on top of it. Okay.
So they're passing around the slide, and you just
I think we've
you
done
rinse them
all
with warm
that.
water and wipe away the poop once you've gotten it softened up, and just keep an eye on things. So the other thing that could possibly go wrong is the coccidiosis, which I think we've already covered
I think
in depth.
Yeah, I think we beat that one to
Yeah.
death. We
let's
can
see.
only hope.
The symptoms are bloody diarrhea, anemia, general lethargy. They look miserable.
Is it just, is it an issue that only happens when they're young? Like once you treat it?
No, if you bring a new bird in, an adult bird, because each flock kind of has its own special strain, it can take them a little while. So then you just go, and just put that stuff in their water for a week.
Okay.
And it helps a lot. Like I said, they're endemic. They're present in every flock, and a flock develops a natural immunity to their strain. Chicks are vulnerable, particularly vulnerable, because they have no immunity to it. From a commercial hatchery, you can have them vaccinated. If they're unvaccinated, use amprolium in their water or use the medicated feed. Keep their bedding clean and dry to reduce what they call oocyst sporulation, which basically means the eggs get in the bedding and they eat it. Yeah, symptoms are here. Oh, where's the really yucky slide? Here we go. No, there should be another one, a blue
A
one.
yuckier
That one.
slide?
Yeah, a yuckier slide.
Ooh,
Oh, we can pass that one around too.
okay.
Okay. I have two here. One of them sort of shows you the life cycle, and the other of a suspect poop. The symptoms are lethargy, diarrhea, huddling like they're cold, pale combs and skin around their eyes. You'll see that too. They look like they're losing blood, basically. They lose their appetite. They're not laying eggs. They lose weight. Their feathers are all ruffled. The life cycle is that the infected birds shed the eggs in their poop, which contaminates the environment, and then those oocysts, the oocysts sporulate, which I must mean that they hatch or go into the next life stage if it's moist enough. If you can keep it dry enough, they won't. And then other birds will ingest the infective oocytes, and then those hatch and invade the intestinal tissue, and that's where you have the problem. And then we get to the merrick's again. If you order your birds from a commercial hatchery, it's like 5 cents a bird or 15 cents a bird to get them vaccinated against merrick's, and it is worth it because, like I said before, if you get it, you've got it. And there is no treatment for it. That's the other thing. There's nothing you can give them. It's usually seen between 6 and 30 weeks of age. We talked about the symptoms, leg and wing paralysis, and sometimes they'll get a wiggly head too. The 1 to 50% mortality. Surviving birds are infected and infectious for life, and not all infected birds have symptoms. Because this disease is spread by inhaling virus-laden dander, it can persist in a coop for years, even if there are no birds. And here we have, is there the little merrick's bird? There we go.
Oh, that's a
Okay.
good one, yeah.
This is a really classic presentation of merrick's, if you want to pass that around. Okay. Avian influenza and biosecurity. The primary vector for the avian influenza is migrating waterfowl. So we're not heavily impacted by it because we're right on the edge of the flyway. We don't get, you know, bazillions of geese and ducks flying over. But we do get some. And we have had some instances. It's found in feces, saliva, and respiratory secretions. The symptoms are rapid high mortality with no other symptoms. Basically, your flock starts dropping dead. This is what they call a reportable disease. If you suspect it, you are obligated, and of course, I'll use that in rabbit ears, obligated to contact the Montana Department of Livestock, and there's a phone number on here. And we'll send you guys these presentations so you've got everything. Biosecurity, Laura started that. We started off with that. The general guidelines for good biosecurity are to limit visitor access to areas where your birds are housed, use dedicated clothing and protective footwear when caring for domestic poultry, and I've broken that rule by running around in my icky chicken boots.
But you're a good example of what not to do.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Wash and disinfect things that are going on and off your farm, such as footwear, vehicles, and equipment. Effective disinfectants include bleach, Comet bathroom cleanser, Lysol multipurpose, Virkon, and Tektrol. Those must be farm things because I've never heard of them. Try and prevent contact between wild or migratory birds and domestic poultry, including access by wild birds to feed and water sources. And that's doable for larger birds, you know, but you just can't keep the sparrows out of anything. So you do what you can. House your birds indoors to the extent practicable, and always isolate sick animals. So when we get to 8 weeks, when you're feeding birds that are over 8 weeks, you can start giving them adult chicken food. The adult layer feed is going to have a lower protein content of 16 to 18%, and it comes in pellet and crumble, organic, non-organic. You don't want to, I for years fed my birds the highest protein feed I could find because I thought it was better for them, but apparently for the layers, if you feed them too high a protein content, it's not good for, it's bad for their livers.
I thought it was the kidneys. But
Well,
whatever.
it's just too much protein for their systems. So you stick to the 16 to 18%. Scratch grains are considered a treat because it's like dessert to a chicken. It's just all empty carbs.
What was that called again?
Scratch grains.
Oh, scratch grains.
Yes.
Oh, can I add something to
Oh, sure.
that? With the scratch grains, what it does, especially in the winter, is it will give your chickens that carbohydrate boost so they can stay warmer in a cold coop. You can only give them enough that all your birds can clean it up in
5 minutes.
In 5 minutes, perfect, yes. I would not give it in the summer unless it's an absolute treat and it's just a little bit, because otherwise it brings their body temperature up, and if it's already hot, it's not doing them any good. But it is, consider it a treat, it is not a main food.
No, and it usually tops out at about 10% protein. And you want to give them a little more than that. Organic and non-organic, that's, a personal preference. I don't do the organic route, mostly because I'm cheap. But let's see. There's the layer versus the meat bird feed. We talked about the layer feed is the lower protein. Meat bird is going to be a much higher protein content, and you feed that. If you're going to raise meat birds, you start them on meat bird feed as soon as you get them, and they eat that until they're processed. Oyster shell for grit and for calcium. You can give it to them free choice. It can just be in a separate little tub in their coop somewhere, and they can get some when they want it.
You can buy that at any feed store. It's just, it's crushed oyster shell.
Yeah.
And it's better than feeding them their eggshells back, because sometimes that sets your flock up for an egg eating situation.
Unless you grind them well enough. Because they don't understand.
Right, I know, but it still can.
Have you had it
Okay.
happen?
Yes.
Okay. I'll take Laura's word for it.
What about chick grit for young chicks?
Pardon?
Chick grit for young chicks?
You know, their feed, for the little ones, their feed should be enough for them. As they mature, yes, they're going to need that, but by the time they need that to process their food, they should already be starting to go outside and be introduced to.
Yeah, if they're going
Outside.
outside, they'll usually find their own.
So don't worry about it with the babies.
And then there's pastured poultry, which is a thing. And the birds are raised almost entirely on whatever's available in the field. And it's a wonderful way to supplement them and to get them all of the extra micronutrients that they're not getting from their regular feed. And it keeps them happy. It keeps them laying really well. But I don't do it like exclusively. But I love being able to let my chickens out and run around, except that they dig dust baths in really inopportune places.
Are they getting worms or bugs, or is it the grass or food?
Everything.
So I'm gonna just take it just to the next one. I assume you all know chickens are omnivores. They'll eat anything, including each other. So yes, when they are outside, and it's really good for them because they get the bugs, the grasses, the whatever they're finding, it just bumps up their nutrition, plus it keeps them entertained. And they entertain us running
Yes.
around doing that.
Can you give them your kitchen scraps?
Oh, yes. Actually, we do a whole program. I've got an entire program on gardening with your chickens. Maybe we'll have to do that next time. But yes, you can. There are certain things you should not give them, like I don't give them sugar. I try not to, so don't, like if you have a cupcake, I wouldn't just throw a cupcake out there because, it may be a treat for us, but it may overwhelm them. But they don't like raw potato skins. They won't eat raw potato.
Nothing nothing can digest raw potatoes.
Right.
Period.
Right.
It goes right through 'em.
So the main thing is, if it's something that you scraped off your plate, let's say there's a little bit of spaghetti with some red sauce on it and some leftover salad, maybe a little bit of meat or something, give it to the chickens. They're gonna love it. They'll thank you by laying eggs and having beautiful colored yolks because of that. So it's a treat for them. It recycles your scraps, and it really keeps your birds happy. My birds actually, if they see me coming and I carry a little bucket with me with my kitchen scraps, they go right into the coop because they know that I'm gonna bring it in and dump it in their treat tray, and off they go, and I don't have any problems with them. They're trained. Food.
They're adults.
Yeah, mine are. Matter of fact, mine are so old that I don't have a coop. I have an assisted living facility now.
What about, is it mealworms? Are those just like also treated as like
Oh, I'll go get it. I'll go get it back. But
Oh,
wait,
they're protein.
they're delicious.
Those are protein. So if you wanted to think of those as a protein supplement, you could.
So to that end, I assume there's a variety of platforms where you can
Grow your own.
So here's one bag that's got mealworms in it. You can take a look at that. And I'm going to pass this, and then if you want to pass that around. Does that have mealworms in it?
Yep,
Yes,
and
it
they'll eat
does,
cat
it
food and
does.
dog
Yeah,
food.
and make sure, if you dip them in ranch. No, just kidding. Yeah. this is again a treat. This is the kind of thing you would use if you wanted to encourage them to train them. I mean, seriously, you can train chickens within reason. And
3 brain
something
cells.
like this, they'll start to learn to come up to you and expect treats. You can use your hand and they'll peck out of your hand. And it's just a nice way of you connecting with your bird and giving them something they enjoy, but it's also highly nutritious. So it's a good thing, but I wouldn't give them a lot of it. I wouldn't just throw it out there.
So you wouldn't treat like you were saying scratch, you would really give them that like in the summer?
Yeah, that would be, that you could give them, but that's more of a, I would say just a handful, and it's just a nice treat for
Yeah.
them.
You know, and good times if you want to think about points over the course of the year when it's a good idea to bump their protein levels when they're molting, because feathers are solid protein, so they can use help. This time of year when they're just starting to lay again is a good time because they're starting to just build their systems up to get going. So,
I've got stuff when you're ready. Oh, it's my turn. Okay.
There's chili peppers in that.
Is it really?
birds, okay, oh, here, fun fact. Birds do not have a capsaicin receptor. And that is specifically because pepper plants want to be dispersed. They want the seeds to disperse, but they want them to go as far as they can. All the little critters that live on the ground aren't going to take it very far before they poop them out. The birds are going to take them way far away. So mammals and the stuff that lives on the ground have capsaicin receptors, so they won't eat it, but the birds will.
I never knew that. See? We all learn something
I
new
have no
every
idea.
time.
I got it off
She's
PBS
a
somewhere.
wealth of-
Does the red pepper flakes, I've heard that they like also help them like produce more eggs.
I don't think there's any established science on that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you know, whatever, you know, I'd be happy to if anyone wants to experiment with it and let us know if it makes a difference. We'd love to know.
You could feed a chicken like a ghost pepper and they would be like, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah. So would that mean the eggs would? Never mind.
No. I don't think so. I won't say just no. I don't think so.
My chicken laid an egg and there were flames shooting out of it.
It's just a pre-seasoned egg,
It's fine. Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. So, oops, where did I go? Okay, here I am. So now we're at growing up and moving, when you're going to move the birds into the coop.
Okay.
Okay.
So I guess I'm going to go.
So we're at,
I'm so excited. I've got this whole other section. I'm just about losing to drop
no
all my
idea where
feathers
she's at.
just to share it.
so you want to introduce your new birds into the coop at 6
yeah.
to 10 weeks of age, and when outside temperatures are around 50 degrees. Once they're fully feathered, which only takes a couple of weeks, is when you can really dial back the heat. They'll molt like 4 times before they get their full adult plumage. So your chick should be about the same size as the smallest bird in your flock, and I've got some pretty small birds, so. That's about 12 to 14 weeks. I don't recommend introducing individuals. Groups are a lot better because that way they have, what's the word that I want? They dilute the pecking order if they're in a group, as opposed to one that can really get picked on. You can keep your newbies in a partitioned area in the coop or in your yard so that everyone can get used to each other for a couple of weeks. Then have supervised daytime integration for about a week, and then they should be okay. There will always be scuffles because that's what the pecking order is all about. We saw a really cool video a couple of years ago, and the one takeaway that I really got from it was a chicken can recognize about 50 other individual birds. After that, they start to stress out. So because this was like from a commercial place, their bottom line was don't have your flock groups in larger than groups of 50, because it will impact their whatever, their productivity, basically. So I thought that was really interesting. Because people will tell you that, like, well, just put them in at night, and then they'll wake up in the morning and they won't realize that there's another bird. But they'll know. There's another
They
bird.
know.
They know. This bird doesn't belong here.
Yeah.
So it doesn't help any. So then how do you keep your chickens happy? So in their coop, you want, clean feed, clean water, calcium grit, bedding, clean pine shavings and straw, particularly in the wintertime. Laura uses exclusively pine shavings.
I do.
I use pine shavings with straw on top because it keeps my chickens busy. But the shavings on the bottom, particularly when it's wintertime and everything's getting muddy and everything, when I go to clean, everything comes right up. If I just have straw, things tend to stick to the floor.
Okay. Can I give my
okay.
overview on that?
Okay.
No, not yet.
Go. Yeah, go.
Okay. Okay, so what I do is, does anybody know what lumber wrap is? It's free. They use it to wrap up lumber like at, what's the place I go?
Lowe's, Home Depot.
Yeah, well, those places too. I was thinking of Bitterroot Valley Forest Products. Okay, so there's these, it's big sheets of plastic. They wrap the lumber in it to keep it dry. Then they throw it out. And they're enormous. So what I do is I go and pilfer those. Okay, I ask nicely, and then I take them out of the garbage. And I literally, and they're clean. They're very clean. I lay them down and fit them into the floor of my coop. Then I put my shavings on top. The good thing about this is when I'm ready to clean my coop out, my husband comes in, grabs 2 of the corners, I grab 2, and we drag the whole thing out, dump it in the garden, shake it out, maybe I hose it off, put it back in, and fresh shave. It's fast. It's one of the fastest. It used to take me hours to clean.
What's that called again?
It's called lumber wrap.
If you see like train carloads of lumber going by and they've got that plastic wrap on them.
It's usually black and white.
Or it's got whatever mill they came from stamped
Yeah.
on it. That's lumber wrap.
Yeah, and it's free. You can, most of the big stores that sell lumber, you can just say, hey, you got any wrap? And they'll probably just tell you, go in the back where we throw everything out and go through there. Well, trust me, it's worth it because there are so many different things you can use it for, and it's recycling, something that's going to get tossed in the trash. So, anyway.
Yep. Okay, so we got bedding. Roosting.
Okay. Roosting.
You need about 10 inches per bird. Several tiers. Always use wood because otherwise they'll freeze in the wintertime. I use 2x2s, or if you really want to go for it, you can go out and cut boughs and use those instead. Nest boxes. You need about one for every 4 hens, but if you've got chickens, you know that they all lay in the same box.
Yeah, they just dogpile in, and
So
they're happy.
there's only so much you can do. They love to free range. Do you have a question? You're looking at me like you had a question.
During the headlight.
Free range, they love to free range. They got all kinds of stuff out there that just they don't get in their regular feed. It makes them very happy, and being happy makes them less stressed and more productive. So they're free ranging, and then you've got predators. At my house, we've got, there's a bald eagle that's been hanging around the last couple weeks. We've got raccoons up to 45 pounds, skunks, coyotes, foxes, great horned owls.
Oh yeah, they'll do it. Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
yep.
I just lost one of my last 2 guineas the day before yesterday, and something must have gotten it during the night, and it must have been a raccoon or something, because it completely cleaned the carcass. All it was bones, but it wasn't eating through the bones, so it wasn't like a coyote or something. I assume it was a raccoon that had gone up and got it off of its perch, because my guineas were always outside, and they roosted up in the hay barn. but, so you've got predators. Again, making sure your birds are locked up at night is the most effective way of managing them. The one predator that we can get that it's just almost impossible to deal with are weasels. And
Or anything in the weasel family.
yeah, anything in the weasel family, because they can, if a mouse can get in, they can get in.
Yeah.
And they'll just kill everything. And unless you can go out there in the middle of the night with a shotgun and basically catch them in your chicken coop, they're really challenging. And then you have to learn how to be a trapper. Okay, then. Oh, I'm getting to the end. Why is it giving me
Why are
trouble
you
now?
doing that? This is what I want to go into, what I purchase, want to purchase, and I got all this, I want to share because I've been researching.
Okay,
I'm
do
sorry.
we want to talk about?
Yeah, I have a question about like the weasels and the predators. Are they just finding little holes and crevices to get in, or are they like biting through the wood or whatever?
The weasels will they'll just squeeze in. Yeah, they're like water.
You know, and since we talked about natural predators, including bears, which we will be discussing
and bears.
with Jamie Jonkel at another, I think it's the next one we're doing. So Jamie Jonkel from FWP, yeah, we'll be there and talk about that. But I want you to know, your cat, your dog, your neighbor's dogs.
The neighbor's dogs, yes.
The neighbor's dogs are probably the worst. Do not assume that the neighbor's dog will leave your chickens alone, because
You can
if,
follow the trail of feathers back to their house.
right, and once they have killed a bird, they will continue to do that. And I've had this experience personally where somebody's dog, I was gone for a while, took the side off my coop. Got in, killed all but one bird, dragged some of them back home, and the neighbors called me and said, oh, I was wondering where they got those chickens from. So, long story short, they reimbursed me for the loss of all of my birds.
If you do it legally, it's like $70 a bird.
Well, this was
It's still-
30 years ago, but yeah, yeah.
And so part of that is because my neighbors, they had dogs that ran all over the place, and they tried to tell me that it was part of the free range thing. They have to fence things out. Free range only applies to cattle and horses if you call the Department of Livestock. And if you call, and this is the hard part of it is, if there is a neighborhood dog that is persistently problematic and you call animal control, they will tell you to shoot it when it comes on your property, because they don't have the manpower to deal with that kind of stuff, because it's very common. So they expect you to manage it yourself.
I know that sounds pretty blatantly
It's
the
not
end,
nice,
but
it's hard. You don't know what, when you have irresponsible neighbors, it gets really painful. So,
yeah, for everybody. Okay. Were you gonna something else on that? Or?
I have heritage and production breeds.
Oh, okay.
Do we want to do that, or
Can we? How about we segue that into this, because I really wanted to talk about this, but this will segue really well into it.
Okay, so we'll start with this.
Okay.
There are two classes of poultry. There's heritage poultry and there's production poultry. Heritage poultry are an array of poultry breeds that have been developed over time, and they're very consistent and hatch out the same kind of birds, every time you breed them. Production poultry can be heritage poultry, but they're not really well-bred, for lack of a better way to put it. And I shouldn't say that.
They're bred for a different purpose.
Your heritage breeds, okay, how am I going to do this? There are people who raise heritage breeds for show. And these birds are kind of, I want to say, like magnified
this. This is the gold
examples
standard
of
of
perfect
perfection.
specimens of,
These
of their particular breed.
Birds,
They're
okay?
huge,
These
for
are
one
all the
thing.
birds that are accepted into the American Poultry
And they
Association.
don't
So she's talking about
produce
these are
either
exhibition,
meat
okay?
or eggs
or heritage.
the way that they would have historically, the way for what the breed was originally made for. The production side of that is birds that are more meet the historic purpose for which they were bred. So they're not going to look, if you go through, Laura's got a standard.
There's a standard
I have a
on
standard
each of,
here.
I left one there. No, that's not it. This is the standard. So this big book here, you've got
Yeah.
one there, and you've got the Bantam standard here. These books will show you the birds that have been accepted into the American Poultry Association. So they're birds that are heritage, as Krista was talking about. Go ahead.
And
I'll let you
completely
finish.
useless from a production perspective.
Well, they
Yes, they
lay, but they're not.
No, they're not.
Consistent.
The other
That's-
thing that I love about this is that these guys, okay, the American Poultry Association and everyone who belongs to it, cannot agree on a living example of any particular breed that is perfect. So instead, they paint them. I kid you not.
No, seriously.
This is
seriously.
honest to God.
Yeah.
So you've got these lovely sort of 19th century-ish illustrations. And they're really lovely. But they don't look like anything you've ever seen.
Yeah. Not a feather
Yeah.
out of place on
Yeah.
those.
So anyway, yeah, so there's that. So then when you get to the production side of it, the other part of the production side is they create all these hybrids. Like the Cornish cross for a meat bird, those white Franken chickens. If you ever raise meat birds like that, do not mix them with your regular chickens because regular chickens know there's something wrong with them and they will kill them.
Seriously.
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 I'm not kidding. The Cornish crosses, the meat birds that you buy at the store, you know, and they grow from 0 to 12 pounds in as many weeks. You can't put them in with regular chickens because the regular chickens will kill them because they know there's something weird about them.
They grow too fast.
They're
I don't know,
just-
but I can guarantee, personal
they're
experience,
not. They're
they'll
not
kill them.
normal.
Yeah, they're not normal. The Cornish crosses, they're what they call an F30. If you remember any of your high school genetics, that means that there's 30 generational crosses to get to that end point of what you're raising to put in your freezer. They're proprietary, they're patented, and they're German.
Yeah. Seriously.
yeah.
That's who holds the
which is
the
kind of scary.
patent.
Now you can get less
Patented
less overbred
Like the
variations on this.
Yeah, like the what is it?
There's the
something
Red
Freedom-
Rangers, Freedom
yeah,
Rangers, Red
or
Rangers,
Freedom Rangers,
and they're
something like
just
that.
they're like an F10. So they're better, and they take slightly longer to grow. There are heritage breeds that were originally bred for meat. There are a couple of them in the slideshow that I'll be sending to all of you.
Oh, here we go.
Okay, I'll just pass these around. And these tell you whether they're for laying eggs or if they're what they call dual purpose meat and eggs or if they're just for meat. So when you go back to the crosses, we also have a lot of the egg layers that we buy. They're breeds that we call, they're hybrids we call sex links, which is where the chicks, the males and the females, are different colors. So they're really easy to separate out at the hatchery, so you only get girls for laying hens. So like the red stars, the black stars, the sapphire gems, Easter eggers, those are all hybrids. And they're designed for egg laying. There are also a lot of heritage breeds that are really good for egg laying. I have some in here. The Orpingtons are wonderful egg layers. And they're also really nice birds. So they come highly recommended. What else do I have? Orpingtons?
Yeah.
Yeah, buff Orpingtons. And there's, when you look at, like if you look in the standard of perfection, it might look a little confusing because, you know, everyone knows what a barred rock is. You know, they're those black and white striped chickens. Well, a barred rock is only one variety of the breed that's called a Plymouth Rock. They can be white, they can be barred. What other colors do they come in?
Oh, Colombian.
Which is
there's-
white with the black speckled neck and tail.
Yeah, and they're in the book.
Yeah, but so
My
when
brain
you,
doesn't
you,
work
you may see different variations on that, and that's what it is. Their name is a combination of their breed and their variety, which is basically their feather color pattern.
So can I do a visual? Okay, so I'm better at visuals because it's how I learn. So the breed is like the umbrella. It's the main umbrella. So let's say the breed is a Plymouth Rock. So Plymouth Rock is the breed. The variety is the breeds that are hanging off the umbrella. So you've got the, what did I say, barred rock. So you've got the barred, or B-A-R-R-E-D, barred rock, which means the lines. You've got the Colombian rock. There's probably a
white rock.
white rock. I mean, it goes on. There's a whole bunch of them. Those are called varieties, and varieties mean color or feather pattern. So breed is the umbrella top, and then the different varieties, which are the color pattern or the color, are the varieties.
And then there are like general climate considerations for different breeds. And around here, basically what you're looking at is comb and legs.
Silkies are great.
Silkies are great, yeah, because so if you go to the store and you can get like feather-legged birds, Cochins, Brahmas will all be feather-legged. And then you look at the comb, those big single combs, they're going to freeze off in this weather. And if the aesthetics are really important to you, then you probably don't want a single comb breed. And you can tell when you look at the picture, like if you're at Murray McMurray, and they'll have a little picture of what they are on the bin that they're in, so you can see what kind of comb they're going to have when they grow up.
Just something to think about, because there's a number of breeds that are really, really good here, and Wyandottes are one because they have a little tiny rose comb, and that comb is chances of it freezing are pretty minimal. So they're a wonderful bird, and when you're done with that, am I ready?
I'm basically done.
Oh, okay. So that means everybody got their pencil and papers ready, because I'm going to go back to where we were. The other beginning, besides the eggs, is where are you going to get your chicks? How many of you already know where you're going to get your chicks, assuming you're getting chicks? Okay. So what are some of the places that you've chosen? You got yours. You got them from Murray McMurray and Murdoch's, and you're happy with your birds.
I'm a week into it. I hope I'm happy. Yeah.
Okay, good. How about you ladies in the back?
We're going to the hatchery called Cowboy Coop.
Oh, good. That was one of the ones I had just researched. Okay, that's good. Okay, local. Anybody, and you ladies, any?
We're getting our adults from Mission Mountain Eggs.
Oh, okay, that's another one I want to check into. This is really good, because this is also giving us some other resources, because we get a lot of questions about where can I get chicks? Where can I get them locally? And most of the people who are raising them locally are raising birds that do very well in our climate. So Mission Mountain, okay, put that one down, Mission Mountain eggs. Eggs, is that, okay. And then you said the
Cowboy Coop.
Cowboy Coop, which is, where is that one? It's like up in Kalispell or something? It's Columbia Falls. Oh, Columbia Falls, okay. And then another one, North Star Poultry. Anybody heard of that one? Okay, they're in Stevensville. I think it's either Stevensville or Victor. I'm going to give you their phone number because that I did find. It's 363-0856, and that is North Star Poultry.
Are those the blue-laced red Wyandottes?
No, that's Canyon Creek.
Oh.
And the next one, I don't have her phone number, but it's Canyon Creek Poultry at gmail.com. And they do the Wyandottes, the blue-laced red. They've got some really nice, a lot of our 4-H kids have shown their birds at fair, done very well with the birds, but also have had birds that lay very well. So quality and consistent consistent egg laying. Another one is JL. I'm going to probably have to look this one up again. I can't read my handwriting. That's really scary. Okay, Glacier Poultry. Give me 2 seconds here. Okay, another one is Living River Farms, which is in either Steve I or Victor. And I think theirs is more for, I don't think they're necessarily selling chicks. Oh, okay, but here's the other one I really wanted you to look at. JL Bar, B-A-R, Farm, and it is in, where are you? It's somewhere close, well, by Montana standards. Okay, where are you folks? Come on. Near, okay. It says something about near Billings, and I'm going, no, that's too far. Okay. Boy, you got me. Okay, this is supposed to be local. I don't know why I don't have where it actually is. Anyway, they do have Morans, which are the chickens that lay those almost chocolate brown shelled eggs. They're beautiful. And they have leg bars, and they also have some heritage turkey, and they've got some other breeds in here. So JLBarFarm.com. So check that one out. And the other one, Glacier Poultry. And I honestly did not know that we had so many more breeders close by that we can get decent birds from. And you may pay a little more than going to some of the hatcheries where they have to ship them in, but you will be getting
Live birds.
Live birds, quality. You can ask them about if they will vaccinate. Some of them don't, a few of them may, depending on how many birds they have, but that's just something to look into. Okay, so that's where to purchase. So you can go out and purchase from like Murray McMurray or Poultry World, or there's some other really well-known ones, and they're very reputable. And you can get your chicks vaccinated through most of those places. And so breeds to bring home. We talked about Wyandotte. That's actually an American breed. And I know Canyon Creek has Wyandotte. North Star Poultry has some really nice Plymouth Rocks. I know I've seen their barred. It was,
and these, yeah, and these guys also do their own in-house layer hybrids.
Yes, yes. So just because we're talking about specific breeds that are in the standard, you can get the hybrids and be equally as happy with those hybrids, and maybe even more so if they're giving you what you need without having to worry about all the other detritus that goes along with having certain breeds of birds.
Well, part of it is the heritage breeds that you get from the Murray McMurray and places like that aren't going to, if you're looking, if you want heritage breeds that are closer to the standard, you're not going to find them there. You have to go to specialized breeders anyway.
Like some of the ones we talked about.
Yeah.
And you can ask when you go in, when you call, if you go to some of these places,
Cousin, you need to move.
go with a list of questions.
Because I need your sister here.
Where do you get where did you start your birds? Do you have certain genetics that you're looking for? Do you have birds that are just good layers? Let's say you don't care about if they're a purebred Wyandotte, you don't care. You want something that's going to be easy to care for, perfect. Easy to care for, and are going to be hardy in our climate. Get what you need. Okay, just because we talk about it doesn't make it so. So we talked about it. Any questions so far? I know there's a lot of information. We're just pouring it in. Everybody should have a funnel stuff in one ear just so we can pour more in. What does a chick cost? A good. You know, depending if you were buying. Well, this I can tell you. If you were buying an exhibition bird, you'd probably be paying maybe $6 a chick. If you're buying a good laying breed that may not be something that you're going to find the standard, $2 to $4 maybe. I'm just giving you a ballpark, okay? It's been a long time since I bought. Yes. How much did you pay?
I think it's gonna be like $5.
$5?
Yeah, but we've got to transport them.
Yes.
That's the way to move them in a car.
Okay, this is really good. This is a great question. So to take, I've got some great stories about picking chicks up from the post office that have come in the box. So the best way to do it is get a box that's going to hold your new chicks that you're bringing home with you. And it's going to have some kind of a loose cover on it, and you're going to want to have some maybe paper towels. Don't use newspaper because they slide around on it and you don't want them to get that ink on them. Use some paper towels and lay it on the bottom of the box. Make sure the sides are high enough so they can't jump out and you're not driving down the road trying to put chicks back in the box. You know, that's very, that could be dangerous. So you want to have a cover on it and put it in the car where there's some heat. So what I've usually done is it was me at 2 in the morning driving to the post office, and I would put it on the floor of the front seat where the heat was coming onto it, and that would keep them warm, and I could watch them because they're going to tell you how comfortable they are. If they've got themselves plastered against the wall of their brooder box, they are overheated. And if they're huddled together like a little pile of chicken poop, they're probably very cold. So you can tell, your birds are going to tell you by their actions what their needs are. They may be chirping a lot. Well, why are they chirping? Well, they either may be hungry, cold, thirsty. Always watch and listen. That's just my advice when it comes to chicks. Okay, so bringing them home. Okay, did I clarify that? Okay. I got this call from this lady. It was a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, she knows what I'm talking about. And she wanted to know something about a 250-watt heat lamp. How close should she have it to her chicks in a cardboard box? I took a deep breath before I screamed, and I said, you know, this is an accident looking for a place to happen. And I explained to her that you don't want to use a high wattage bulb in a cardboard box with shavings. And of course, I got asked, but why not? And so I'm telling you just the basis of this story, just to give you something to think about, because not everybody looks at the safety factor of how you're keeping your chicks, because not only could the box catch on fire and lose all your chicks, but your house could go up with it. You know, and there's a lot of stuff that goes with that. But always look at your situation and say to yourself, how could that be better? Or if I put that on a concrete floor, is that going to be too cold for my chicks even with the heat in there? You know, there's a lot of those kind of questions that you want to ask yourself. So when you bring your birds home, look at where you're putting your brooder. Always make sure you know the temperature in there, and always start your temperature, and it should be in your notes there, at 95 degrees, and then every week drop it down 5 degrees as they're getting all their feathers in.
And that's where you got your chicken, your kitchen thermometer, you know, that's got the little cable and the probe on it. And I just set it on top of my brooder box, and I have the probe down in there so I can monitor the temperature down at the bottom, you know, where they are.
Okay, so adult birds. Now, we're not going to go into the coops yet, because that's a whole nother meeting.
Yeah.
How long did we say this is going for? We don't want to keep you. Oh, till 3? Okay. And nobody's been beating their head against the table, so this is a good sign. All right. So adult birds, we talked about food and water. We're going to talk about coop later. Seasonal feeding, we did a little bit on that. Seasonal feeding, which is a little more carbohydrate in the winter to help them keep warm, and a little less in the summer, and letting your birds out. And talked about feeding kitchen scraps, good healthy kitchen scraps. Health issues, we talked about, let's see, we didn't talk about wet litter.
Well, you don't want wet litter.
That's why we didn't talk about it, because
we assume nobody has wet litter.
yeah. Does anybody know what wet litter is?
Oh, sorry. I guess I was just assuming.
No, ask.
Well, I'm assuming wet litter is just after they've spilled their water on it, or they just have gone to the bathroom enough that it just is creating a lot of these fumes that they don't want to be taking in.
Okay, perfect. So here's what happens. Yes, you're right about knocking the water and that kind of thing. But you have enough birds and they poop enough that your litter's going to get wet. If it's winter time and they're more enclosed in there, it can build up ammonia. And remembering they're this close to their litter, they're breathing in that ammonia. If you walk into your coop and it smells like ammonia, and you're smelling it, imagine what your birds are smelling. So, clean that coop ASAP. Do not let that build up, because it will affect the health of your birds, and it can make them more susceptible to other diseases. Yes, dear?
On average, how often is it typical to clean out a coop?
Well, it depends on how many birds you have and how big a space you have. Nowadays, I only have 7 birds left. I used to have 60 plus. And I used to be cleaning both coops once a month at the very least.
With 7?
No, that was when I had 60. When I had 7, I do it probably every 3 to 4 months, and it's a piece of cake. It's a lot easier.
Like your kind of standard size coop, like not too big?
My coop's pretty big. My husband overbuilds everything. So no, I think the space that they're in right now is probably 2 of these tables put together side by side. And so with 7 birds, there's a lot of room for them. And I have the lumber wrapped down and the shavings and all that, but it still will.
So, 'cause like we're planning on maybe like 3 or 4 birds maximum.
The one easy thing to do is pretty much where everything's going to concentrate is underneath their roosts. So you can do a couple things. We do the lazy man's thing, and we'll just clean under the roost periodically, every once a month or so. And then I do a seasonal cleaning, a deep clean, every 4 or 5 months, or as the weather permits. Like a lovely spring we're having. So you can do that. There are also things you can actually hang like a board or a piece of canvas underneath their roost that catches all the poop, and you just take that out and beat it out and put it back. I don't know anyone who does that, but
Just what? That takes a...
just like a poop board
Oh, yeah.
or a
I know
poop
what you're
hammock.
talking- Yeah.
When you clean out your coop, can you just put everything in your garden compost?
Okay, great question. This is my thing. So my husband's a big gardener, so we have a huge garden. I mean, it's
It's the size of this room.
yeah, he's a little overachiever. Anyway, so what we do is when we clean the coop in the wintertime, we pile the shavings and poop out by the garden or put it on top of the snow so it breaks down over the winter. Then in the spring, he rototills it in, and we've had like 11-pound cabbages. So that gives you an idea of how positive your chickens truly give back to you in a lot of ways. I mean, I make jokes about it, but it's true. So yes,
But
it has so much nitrogen in it. If you were to take that and put it right on your garden as it's coming up, you would burn the heck out of everything. So it needs to have time to break down, and then you can use it in whatever plant-based thing you're doing. Don't eat it.
yeah, so then in my situation, because I use straw or hay on top of it, I cannot compost it because hay and straw are treated with long life herbicides. And you can't, I'd have to compost it for 5 to 7 years in order to break those down. The same happens if you, I'm going down a rabbit hole here. If you get horse poop, you have to compost it for a couple of years because of the same thing, because the hay, when it goes through the horses, it doesn't break down those herbicides. Cow poop is different because they're ruminants, so they pretty much destroy everything in their system.
Right, and you said you use just shavings?
I use pine shavings. You can buy them anywhere, but when I had 60 plus chickens, I was literally buying it by the ton at Bitterroot Forest Products because I got a heck of a discount on it, and so and it lasts forever. I just store it and it lasts forever. So, but you can buy it anywhere. They have those big bales, and I think it says Bitterroot Forest
Probably.
Products on it, and that's
With a significant markup.
yeah. So well.
So the weather right now, and forgive me if this is like a totally dumb question, but
No, nothing's done here.
heading into, it seems like we're kind of getting a ton of chicks. Things are obviously starting to kind of pop up, but is there a time, like for example, if like we're not ready until summer, does that have an effect on what we do or how we change things, or basically like, is there a chick season in like compared to like a calving season, or is
Yeah, because they try and, you want to hit the window where it's not too cold and it's not too hot. particularly if you're having birds shipped. As far as when you get them or when you hatch them or whatever, it doesn't really make any difference other than the timing of when they're going to come into production, because laying hens are, for production hybrid layers, how long does it take them to start laying?
They can be between 6 to 9 months for a production layer.
If you get a heritage breed, it's going to be more like 9 before they
To a
really,
year.
Yeah, before they start laying.
Yeah.
And then you need to look at your light considerations, because in order to optimal laying conditions are what, 16 hours of daylight?
Yes.
So in the wintertime, yeah, they taper right off. And you can supplement their light, and it will keep your egg production up some.
Yeah.
It's not a perfect replacement. Otherwise, if you don't, they'll quit in December, and they'll just be coming back online now.
No, that's helpful. Yeah, I only ask because I'm like, obviously we have lots to go through still, and so being ready in the next few weeks doesn't really
Yeah.
feel like we can do that, but next few months, and then all of a sudden we start wondering about considerations. So, thanks.
You know, and the other thing you can do if you're going to buy from the local hatcheries, you just call them and find out what their breeding schedules are, or their hatching schedules are, and you know what their windows are.
Questions? Oh, good. I like questions.
I have more about bedding. I was thinking about, you can get bedding, I mean, you can get like wood chips from a landscaping company and stuff, but they're not all gonna be fine. Or I've seen people use sawdust, and I'm wondering, what are the different beddings?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Sawdust is so fine. It really could be more of a hazard than anything else, because they'll kick it more into the water. It'll float in the water. I would not do sawdust. Shavings from landscape, I'd be really cautious about, only because if they have been treated with something, most of the time it's just the bark off of, down trees that they're running through, it's leftovers running through the mill. I would be really cautious. So you want to use the cleanest bedding that you can. And the other one that you've heard Kristen say several times is cedar, because of the oils. It is highly volatile to their respiratory system, and do not ever, even if somebody gives it to you, don't use it with your birds. Okay, did I answer that one? Okay.
So I know Coop is in the next class, but then you don't want to cedar Coop then either.
I guess you could. The whole point is it going to give out the volatile fumes? Is it something that's there's going to constantly be that smell there that could affect your birds? So if you were using it as siding or something and it wasn't affecting the interior smell, then I don't think it's a big deal. I just think you just need to be really conscious of that. Yes?
We exclusively use pine shavings, but we have heard of, folks using like straw, and my question is about a myth buster. But so I feel like we've heard about maybe straying away from hay, because it can be a really good component for like holding mites.
We've heard that too.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Around here, I don't know if it's really going to make that big a difference one way or another. Sure. One of those sheets I have Cornish on. Cornish do not get external parasites.
You're talking about the purebred Cornish,
purebred
not the Cornish cross.
Cornish, the Indian game. They don't get external parasites. So if you can find the hen-feathered birds, because that's what the Cornish are.
Because they've got the Lighter feather? What is
because they've just got the more armor type feathering.
Oh, got it. Right.
Yeah, that they just don't get them, and I don't know why. The mites, the whole external parasite thing, it's always just going to be a management thing. You know, the mites will live in the straw too, or in the chips. So I don't know. All I know is I've always had mites. So, but let's talk. There's one more disease, ILT, that I'd like to talk about.
Yeah.
And
where's yours? Because we both had it, I
yes.
think.
Chickens have really delicate lungs. They don't breathe the way that mammals do. They've got an air sac here, and then they've got an air sac here, if I were standing a chicken up. And then they've got their lungs are this long set of tubes in between. So they kind of double breathe. But it makes them particularly susceptible to anything that can clog up those tubes. And so any respiratory, any of the dusty stuff, like I'll give my chickens ashes as part of their dust bath, but I keep it's outside, so they've got lots of ventilation. And the ashes act a lot like a diatomaceous earth would on the nasty little critters. But when they get respiratory infections, they are much more critical in birds than they would be in a mammal because of the way it interferes with their breathing. And you can treat it, a lot of times if you just support them through it, they'll get over it. And what it is it's 1 cc of Mucinex and half of a baby aspirin mashed up in it.
A
And
couple times a day.
And it's twice a day for 5 days. And we had Laura, there's a respiratory disease called interlaryngeal tracheitis, or ILT.
I just found it. There it is. Okay.
And it's another one of those diseases, once you have it in your flock, it's persistent, and your flock doesn't exhibit symptoms, but they're carriers. And I got some birds from Laura, and all of a sudden all my birds got sick. And it was because the ILT came in. And I lost several birds before I got this recipe. And none of them died after that. None of them died.
Luckily,
It worked
she's still speaking to me. Go away.
It was one of those things. But it's just a magic formula.
And that was from Dr. Cart,
Yes.
actually.
And I'll make it up in a larger batch so I can just dose everybody.
It was, how many cc's of Mucinex?
1 cc of Mucinex, or,
Per bird.
or the generic equivalent, and a half of a baby aspirin, which would be 40 milligrams, I think.
Something like that.
'Cause I
Yeah,
think the
they're
baby
not real.
aspirin's 80s.
Yeah. So, and that's it'll run through your flock, and they will be carriers.
And once they're over it, they're immune, and it's okay, except that you have to remember that it's endemic in your flock. So unless you either replace all your birds and rest the area for a significant amount of time,
Right.
it's still going to be there. Another disease, blackhead.
Oh, we don't talk about that much. Yeah.
And we should.
Yeah.
I've had it, but I didn't get it from you. I got it from.
That's why she wears a hat. Never mind. Bad joke. Okay. I'm sorry. I can't help it.
Some super high-end turkey poults one year, and they got blackhead. They came with blackhead. Blackhead is a disease, I have no idea what it's actually called, but in turkeys it manifests itself, their heads turn kind of purpley. And there's some real diagnostic post-mortem scarring on their livers and stuff. And that's another one.
I'm looking it up.
It's a parasite that has different life cycles. And part of that is the fecal material is ingested by worms, and then the worms are carriers, and the chickens can eat the worms. The chickens will carry it, they will not get it. But then you can't have turkeys. Because the turkeys will always get it, because it's now endemic on your property. It's not something that is normally endemic in this region, but once you've introduced it, it's there.
I'm
So
looking.
if they're not killed by predators or they're not killed by disease.
Yeah, pretty much. Personally, I just keep them all in the house. Just keep them all in the house. Yeah, separate rooms.
What is the average lifespan of a chicken?
Yeah, there is. And it kind of depends. So for most of the layers, and we're talking about production layers, it's going to be maybe 8 years. You can get that far. I've got some birds. I've got some black Orpingtons that are probably 9 years old, and they are still going. Once in a blue moon, I'll get an egg, but they are still going. And so a lot of it is just how healthy are they? I hate to say it, how happy are they? But it's keeping up on those issues like the mites and other health issues. And yeah, you can keep them at that point they become pets. Yeah, that's why I said I have an assisted living facility, not a coop.
If you're looking at the production end of it, birds lay productively for about 3 years once they start laying. So if you're really good at planning your preparations, you'll buy a few new birds every year so that you've always got birds that are on line. And if you need to keep track of them, you can use colored bands. Everyone gets purple for this year, and they'll get red for the next year, and yellow for the year after that. So you can know how old everybody is. It's histomoniasis. Okay, this is blackhead. Histomoniasis is a protozoan parasite. Yeah, chickens are normally immune. The disease occurs when a turkey eats an earthworm carrying eggs and a cecal worm, which in turn are harboring, so they've got, the hosts have hosts, which in turn are harboring histomonads. The parasites lodge in the cecum, enter the bloodstream, and eventually migrate to the liver. I saw the post-mortem, and what it is the liver looks like it's got stars on it. It's real distinctive. Chickens can get it. It's usually when they're 4 to 6 weeks old. Mortality is 20 to 30%. There aren't really any really effective drugs. And since survivors continue to shed histomonads, control requires controlling cecal worms. Oh, good. I get to go look at something else. Anyway, it's not something you need to worry about a whole lot here unless you're importing turkeys from someplace else.
Okay, I've got a question for the group. We've gone through a lot of material. I'll take your question in just a second. We've gone through a ton of material. What are the questions, and I'll start with you, that you have for us on things that either we didn't touch on, you would like to know more on that we discussed, or just general questions? So why don't you start us out?
Yeah, so this is kind of going with blackhead. So we're actually going to be moving here pretty soon to Spokane.
Oh, okay.
And the area that we're going to be living in, it has wild bands of turkeys in the city.
Yeah.
All over the place. Would that be something that we would have to worry about? Blackhead?
You know.
Affect the turkey more than it would affect
Yeah.
Yeah.
But definitely, those turkeys get everywhere.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and you probably got the same thing I do. I mean, our place is just, it's like, we have a wild turkey infestation.
yeah.
They're everywhere, but we've never had any problems. And we've had our own turkeys on the property, and we've never had a problem with the wild turkeys bringing anything in, but I think it's just the way we had everything enclosed, so it was more difficult for them to actually get in there.
Because I know that they easily get into people's yards.
Oh, yeah.
All over the place. And so I just
you just want to keep your birds out, you want to keep the wild birds or the wild turkeys out of the area where your birds are. So let's say you have a coop with a run, and then you open the run into, say, a yard that you want to let them run around for the day. You want to make sure that the turkeys aren't getting into that yard or can't get into that yard. So you might want a higher fence, because, I mean, they can fly, but they're more ground, and they're going to be running around on the ground. So you just want to make sure they don't interact.
So I'm going to contradict you.
Oh, please.
The turkeys will come over a 6-foot fence, no problem, to get into the coop where I have my bachelors, to go in and eat all their food. So I've had to change the schedule, so when I lock them up at night, that's when I feed them so they can eat in the morning when they wake up. And the turkeys won't take it all. And also when I free range my chickens, and I had an opening to the chicken coops, they could go in and lay their eggs during the day, the turkeys would go right in. And then they go into the run and eat all the food. And I kept making the door smaller and smaller and smaller. They'd still get in.
So she's had different experiences. So, yeah.
Really good to try.
So this is where you need the
They're
dog.
not afraid of anything, but you can be sitting there in traffic, honking your horn at them, and they do not care.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
They don't care.
Yeah. 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 It's,
Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt.
yeah.
Is it possible for family pets to get along with chickens, or you really have to keep them separate?
Oh, sure. Oh, my gosh. Yeah. It just depends on what you've got. Back when my kids were little and they were raising chicken, sheep, pigs, my daughter would let her lambs out, and her lambs would chase my son's silkies. And they would just chase them all over, and the silkies were just beside themselves and would run and try to get away, and we'd have to, because they can't fly. Those birds cannot fly. So they would be, but our dog does not care about the chickens, and our cat is afraid of them. So, you just, it really depends. But yes, most of the time pets and can get along within the same family.
Any resources for training your dog not to react to them?
That, yeah.
She's like a hound, but she likes to play with little mice, so I don't know. She's excited by it.
Okay. Honestly, the only way I would do that thank you so much. The only way I would do it if it was my dog and I wasn't sure is if my dog was going in with me to where my chickens are, I would have it on a lead.
Yeah, okay.
And then if the dog behaves and doesn't touch the chickens, then you could give it a treat for behaving. But otherwise, yeah, it can be an issue.
Yeah, okay.
I hope that helped.
Yeah, no, I think it's fine. I'm okay with keeping them separate.
Okay.
So have you guys ever had, is there a reason to have roosters other than?
Roosters, it seems to complete the social structure of the flock. And then roosters also, for one thing, they're really easy to find because everyone's always giving away roosters because you can't have them in town.
Right.
And they will always, if you let your birds out and you do have birds of prey, the rooster will sacrifice himself for the flock. And then you just get another rooster. But they will. For the good of the flock. And that's why you're there, you're getting those eggs are what you're after, so the rooster's kind of secondary, particularly if you're not breeding.
Yeah.
So.
But you can also have really nice roosters who will make wonderful pets, and they're not obnoxious and they're not chasing you and trying to spur you.
I have a really wonderful big rooster if anybody wants him. Bernard the Bielfelder.
Oh, that's right. Isn't he the one that you towed that wagon in for you? That you brought? No, I just.
Are they not allowed in the city limits? Are they allowed in the county? Okay.
You can do it, yeah. In the county, it's a moot point, but in the city itself, you're limited to 6 females.
Okay.
I'm just giving you the truth, not what really happens.
And you get,
We know
and you just
nothing.
get a license.
Yeah, you have to get a license to have, yeah, and they have those little tags you put on the so yeah, you can have six.
County is free-for-all.
Yeah.
Emu, pork of the future.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate your question, because I'm like living in fear of like anything happening, and I'm already too attached to them, and I've named them, and I'm worried about them all the time, and no sleep, and feel like a new mom that doesn't know what she's doing, but, so realistically, like, once we're going to get them outside in 6-ish weeks, my husband and I work, we'll have the coop, where they sleep at night, and then we're hoping we'll have the run, and then when we're home, things can be maybe a bit more free. We'll see how we feel. But I mean, do the worst things happen at nighttime with the weasels and the predators and that? Are we safe to have them in a run for the daytime? Should they be in a coop when we're at work? We have just 6, but
If your run is covered, you're fine.
If your run is covered,
Yeah.
yeah, and it has something around where the wire hits the dirt, it should be buried. You should bury the wire, because anything that can dig, and honestly, stuff will come in during the day too. So you really want to look at your setup from the eye of a predator. And if you do that, you're going to have a better idea of where the parts of your setup are that can be, what's a good word? Breached. That's the word I was looking for. Score. Yeah, breached. So you really want to be aware of that. But honestly, you want your birds, especially in the summertime, to have as much free run time as possible. If that means that the best for you and your family is that you, as soon as you get home from work, you let them out and they can run around, and then you put them back in as it starts to get dusky, that would probably be the best.
we're going to talk about coops at the next one.
Yes.
Just the run thing, that's what, it should be okay if it's built well.
Yes.
Be in the daytime, because I hate the thought of them being in the coop with the door shut while we're at work.
No, it could be too hot for them. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes with that you really have to take it into consideration so that your birds are safe and comfortable, because you don't want to come home and find out they've all died of heat exhaustion or something. So that'd be sad. Yeah, be very sad. Yeah. What other questions? Other questions? Yeah.
I have one, we kind of touched on it, but so we're getting our chicks from Cowboy Coop, which is in Columbia Falls.
Great.
And we are gonna go pick them up.
Yep.
And drive them back.
Yep.
And you just mentioned if we have a box for them and they're in a warm enough spot, do you think that would be okay?
In the car. In the car.
Yeah.
Yes, that's just fine. And if you're going up there and you're driving back way, and if it's safe to pull over, you might want to pull over and just check on them to make sure that they're either, they can be huddled together. That's okay, but just make sure they're all right, and they should be fine.
Yeah.
As long as they're warm enough, they should be fine. And then once you get them home, you just put them into your new brooder box.
You
that
can
you
get those
got.
little hand warmer thingies too.
Yeah, that's what they actually send
Yeah.
with them. It's those hand warmer things. So if you want to do that, if you're concerned, you can always do that. Or, like I said, turn the the heat on to the feet under the by the front seat, and that usually will do it. Yeah, sure, you bet. What else? I mean, there's just so much info. We're just, yeah. Oh yeah. They imprint and they learn, and then I don't know about your experiences, but I've had birds that I had a barred rock. Her name was Dinner Chicken, because every time we sat down for dinner outside, she would run up and expect treats so we'd have to, the dog was not allowed to eat from the table, but the chicken could as long as we were outside. So yeah, they start to do that, and then I've had chickens that, you know, I brought them into the coop for the first time, and they looked at the coop, they looked at me, and they flew up and landed on my shoulder because they were afraid. You know, I mean, yeah, they do. And my son used to carry all of his chicks around when he was in 4-H in like a baby carrier. I mean, talk about imprinting on somebody. I think he started to look like him after a while. It was kind of weird, but anyway. Okay. Enough of my bad jokes. So if you're, did you have a question?
I do have
Oh, goody.
for the dust baths.
Yes.
Is that something you just do periodically, or should you always have an area that they can bathe?
It's in the summertime, they're going to make their own dust bath area. They're just going to do it because they do.
Someplace really inconvenient.
Yeah, yeah.
The
Someplace
functional
you'll step
equivalent
in
of
and
the
break
middle
an
of the
ankle,
kitchen floor kind of
usually.
thing, yeah.
But yes, and in the wintertime, what you can do is get one of those big rubber tubs, and you can throw potting soil mixed with diatomaceous earth or some ash, like you said, and you can put it in their coop, and then they can roll around in that, and that kind of keeps it under control, but at least it allows them to still dust bathe during the winter.
Okay, thank you.
So are you saying that there are actually people that have more chickens than they should inside the city limits than a rooster?
Oh, we know nothing. Yeah, we know nothing. But before we let you escape from here, I do want to encourage, if any of you have birds that will be mature enough by fair, we would love to have you come and enter your birds in our barn for fair, because, you ready? Drum roll, please. Drum roll, please. There we go. There we go. Okay. Number one, you bring your birds in and you leave them, and then you come and pick them up on Sunday, and we feed, water, and care for your birds the entire time they're here. Number two, our ribbon premiums are spectacular. I don't think there's another fair around here who has ribbon premiums as good as Western Montana Fair.
What does that mean?
That means when you win a blue ribbon, you get $8. Score!
And if you win backyard,
If you enter that beautiful bird of yours in the backyard division, and it comes in first place, not only do you get $8, but you get $50 on top of that from one of our sponsors. We've got a number of sponsors who have just been so generous. We've had people walk out of there with several $100s in premium money. Now, I'm not saying that you should do this just for the money, but but it doesn't hurt. But you're doing it for the community. One of the reasons we're so gung-ho about our barn is because we engage our public. And to engage our public, we need enough entries so that people come in and they learn about them. Our 4-H kids, they are our barn ambassadors. So all the kids that we're teaching, we have them talk and hold their birds and talk to the public, our guests who come through. So they may come over and look at your bird and go, what kind of a bird is that? And then one of our 4-H kids can educate them on that. So think about it, because we actually have staff that takes care of all the birds. And I know you're going to say, but what about all the diseases? Well, we check your birds for mites before we even let them come in. And if they have mites, we have to send them home sometimes.
or would you treat them on the spot?
Oh, we treat them on the spot. Plus, we have Dr. Card who comes through regularly and checks the birds And if we have any issues or we see a bird that may have something going on and we just don't
They're
think
not
it looks
feeling
right.
well.
Right.
We'll send them home.
We'll send them home, or we'll call Dr. Card first and say, can you take a look at this bird, and we'll isolate it. So your birds are treated like royalty, just short of little tiny crowns on their little heads.
And we've never had an infectious event.
No, we haven't.
So,
We've had some other weird
we've-
stuff,
yeah.
infectious events.
No, we won't talk about that. But yeah, I mean, because I've been a superintendent for like 15
I think it's
years.
15 years, and I've been 20.
Yeah.
So,
So we've got a
Yeah.
pretty good track record.
yeah. Yeah. So I just wanted to throw that out because for us, this is really important. It's equally as important to educate you and teach you, and then to have you say, I love my birds and I want to show them at fair, means that gives back to us and to the community. So it's just something to think about. And that means we get to see you again. And the children. So anyway, if you have our cards, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to call us. If there is anything else that we can answer, and I mean, we'll be here, but I guess it's 3 o'clock now, so we're supposed to shut this down, right? Are we? Okay, we've been told.